Mr. Abel.
Good start.
Well, my cell phone says 5:30 p.m., so I'm gonna go ahead and start and call this city council meeting to order for today, Tuesday, August 11, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. Just want to thank all the attendees. Thank you guys for coming out and attending this meeting. And for the ones that couldn't make it, our staff is recording this meeting and it'll be available on our website 24 hours afterwards. So with no further ado, I'm gonna ask Mayor Pro Tem Ballou to bless us with the invocation.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and for all the many blessings that you provide for us each and every day. Heavenly Father, thank you for Morehead City and all the good things that are going on in our city and all the ones working behind the scenes to make it happen. We thank you for all who are here tonight as we do the business of our city. We pray you give our mayor, council, and staff wisdom and guidance as we work together for the better of Morehead City. All this we ask in Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if everyone can put your cell phones on silent to avoid interruptions and distractions, please. Thank you for that. So for item number 2, the council has had ample time to look over the agenda. And at this time, if you guys want to remove something for the agenda or add something to the agenda, you have the power to do so at this time.
I move we accept the agenda as presented.
Okay, motion made by Councilman Bill Taylor to accept the agenda as presented. Will there be a second?
I'll second.
Councilman Harvey Walker seconded. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Okay, so item number 3, the adoption of consent agenda. So the consent agenda is a list of items that are discussed in our committee meetings and vetted through all the council over a couple week period of time. And at this time, any council member wants to pull any consent agenda item off, you have the power to do so at this time. If not, is there a motion to accept or adopt the consent agenda as presented?
May I make a motion we adopt the consent agenda as presented?
Motion made by Councilmember Harvey Walker,
I second.
seconded by Councilmember Nathan Chambers. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Okay, so for item number 4, our public hearing section, item 4A, annexation of 191 and 195 Morgan Street and 201 Marine Drive. Sandy, your presentation.
This request includes an undeveloped 9.5-acre tract at 191 and 195 Morgan Street and 201 Marine Drive located on Radio Island. The property is presently within the Carteret County's jurisdiction and is contiguous to the Morehead City's existing corporate limits. The tract is currently zoned Port Industrial by Carteret County. The associated request for initial city zoning will be considered separately under item 4B. Should this annexation be approved. At the city's current tax rate, the annexation would generate approximately $3,300 in annual city property tax revenue, and all costs associated with extending water and sewer service to the property would be the responsibility of the property owner. Annexation would also bring the property within the city's corporate jurisdiction and make it eligible for city services. Notice was provided in accordance with the requirements applicable to the annexation hearing. Approval of the annexation is necessary before the city can apply the requested city commercial marina zoning designation which is under item B of the city council agenda.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. Does any council members have any questions for Sandy? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Public hearing is now open. If any citizen wants to get up and speak in favor of this annexation or in opposition, you have the right to do so at this time. Mr. Cullifer, you have a 3-minute time limit, sir. Just state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Ron Cullifer. I'm an engineer with the Cullifer Group located in Morehead City, 151A, Highway 24. I'm representing the Udy family and Bowline Capital in this request. And as Sandy said, it's currently in the county jurisdiction, and we'd like to annex into the city and be able to receive city services. And respectfully request approval for the annexation.
Thank you, Mr. Cullifer. Is there anyone else out in the audience who wants to speak in favor or in opposition of this annexation? Okay. Public hearing is now closed. Gonna defer to our planning committee chair.
Yeah,
Councilman
Mr.
Avery.
Mayor, obviously this was vetted in our committee not long ago. We talked about it, and therefore I move that we go ahead and adopt this. I think it's going to be, is it Resolution 2026-012? That be right?
Yes, sir.
Ordinance, not, yeah. Adopt the annexation of that property.
Okay, so motion made by Councilmember Richard A. Bell. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem George Ballou. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Okay, Sandy. Item number 4B, rezoning of 191 and 195 Morgan Street and 201 Marine Drive.
The applicant has requested that the same tract that you just reviewed for the annexation request be initially zoned to commercial marina district. And this aerial identifies the subject property along Marine Drive and Morgan Street. The tract is undeveloped except for 3 existing docks. The surrounding area contains a mixture of residential, multifamily, marina, port, and industrial development. This map shows the requested commercial marina zoning designation in relation to the current county and city zoning. The property is currently zoned port industrial under Carteret County zoning, and immediately surrounding zoning includes port industrial districts to the north, south, and west, planned development and commercial marina zoning to the northwest, and residential zoning and development across Morgan Creek and Morgan Street to the east. And the property is presently not included on Morehead City's future land use map or neighborhood planning area maps. Carteret County's plan identifies the property as developed. Once the city initially zones the property, the city's comprehensive plan map should also be amended to incorporate it into Morehead City's planning framework. Formal action on these amendments would occur under item 4E of the agenda. The applicant has requested that the tract be added to the east neighborhood planning area, and the current and proposed land use maps are shown here. Neighborhood planning area maps are shown here. And these are the future land use map designations. The applicant also requests that the property be designated port mixed use on the future land use map. All portions of Radio Island currently included on the city's future land use map carry the port mixed use designation as depicted on the screen. Formal action on the proposed amendments, land use map amendments, would occur again under item 4E. This table depicts the uses presently permitted in the county port industrial use list. And this is also included in the agenda materials online and in your packets. And this table depicts the permitted and special uses within Morehead City's commercial marina district. Because this is a conventional zoning request, council must consider the full range of uses allowed in the CM district. No site-specific conditions may be attached to a conventional rezoning request, and depending upon the uses ultimately proposed, additional planning board or council review may not be required. The property was posted with public hearing signs along both Marine Drive and Morgan Street. The hearing was advertised and abutting property owners were notified. Staff had received 5 inquiries as of the planning board presentation last month. At the planning board meeting, 1 person spoke in favor and 2 in opposition to the request. On July 21st, the planning board voted unanimously to recommend approval of the commercial marina zoning and the associated comprehensive plan amendment and adopted planning board resolution 2026-0005. Council will consider any land use plan amendment separately under item 4E. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Does the council have any questions for Sandy at this time?
Sandy, can you put that map?
Yes, sir. The zoning, is that what you're requesting,
The
sir?
map.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go back.
This one? Zoning?
So the area that we're talking about is what's in that diagram there, the little area that's to the south. So that still remains Port Industrial.
Yes, sir. That property is not part of the current request. That's under, not included in this.
So that is not included, so that'll remain Port Industrial.
County Port Industrial, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's not in the city limits at this time, nor it's under separate ownership. if I
Yes, sir.
understood it correct.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Sandy? Okay, hearing none. Public hearing is now open. If there's anybody who wants to get up and speak in favor or in opposition of this rezoning, Mr. Culliford.
Thank you again, Ron Cullifer, representing the applicant in this rezoning request. You saw the list of potential uses under the county's jurisdiction. Our proposed rezoning limits those uses quite a bit to something that's less intrusive into the neighborhood as it currently exists. And again, we just request approval to move forward with the rezoning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience who wants to speak in favor or in opposition of this rezoning request? Yes, sir. You state your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Eric Remington. I'm with the law firm of Ward & Smith. I'm out of New Bern, but I'm here representing the Old Town Condominium Owners Association and Old Town Yacht Club Marina Owners Association. We're opposed to this request for rezoning. The applicants have asked for the property to be annexed into and at the same time be rezoned. There's a significant change that is being done here to the zoning. Under the county's plan, the zoning would require a special use permit for things like commercial marinas and dry stack storage and things like that. Under this new zoning, it would be permitted use as of right. And the people of Old Town, both the Condominium Owners Association and the Marina Association, were not given proper notice of this hearing. The requirements under the Morehead City zoning ordinance require, and it's section 24-7 of the ordinance requires that in addition to the published notice requirements in section 24-5, the following shall apply to zoning map amendments, which this is. And it says that the owners of affected parcels of land and the owners of all parcels of land abutting the parcel of land shall be mailed a notice of the hearing on the proposed zoning map. Certainly the folks of Old Town and the Old Town, those two associations are affected by this. And it says that they shall be mailed notice, and they've not been given any notice. So we would ask that this be continued to a different date to allow the planning staff to give the proper notice to these associations so that they can actually study this and determine, whether they can still want to oppose it and further, find out more details about it because they don't really know anything about it. We'd ask that if you're not willing to continue the hearing, then we would ask that you consider some sort of a lesser zoning. The portion, obviously a lot of this is residential multifamily, things like that, or something like port, maritime, or industrial may be the best, most comparable uses to what it is currently. So, but again, we'd ask that you continue this hearing to allow the notice to be properly mailed to these two associations so that they can determine how they want to address the situation. And find out more about it.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Is there anyone else?
My name is Brandon Pittman. I'm one of the condo owners and also the homeowners association president for Old Town Yacht Club. And I can attest that none of the residents were served via mail, United States Postal Service mail, a notice of this. We also checked with our neighbors at Inlet Cove. Several of them did not get any mailing notification of that as well. The one thing that I may mention, we have 102 condominium units there, approximately 100 boat slips. The concerns that we have with this is currently there's one means of ingress and egress off of Radio Island. And when you go to any type of marine zoning like what we're seeing, it kind of lends itself towards either a public marina like what's across the street or a dry stack type situation or something like that. You could be looking at a significant number of automobiles coming back and forth off of that one means. In addition to that, you're at the bottom of the bridge coming from Morehead City to Radio Island and at the bottom of the bridge coming from Beaufort. So to realign that traffic or to put a stoplight at the bottom of a bridge is really kind of unorthodox. Nobody comes to the bottom of a bridge expecting to stop. So we feel like it would be a pretty significant hazard to be able to do that. The other thing, if I could ask, since you got it, could I see the aerial map again, please? One of the things, if I could direct your attention, probably see it better on this one. If you look at Morgan's Creek, if there's a marina put in there, we've done a informal boat count, if you will, of what goes up and down Morgan's Creek. And you can see in this picture, over at Inlet Cove, there's a basin that there's boats inside that basin. There's also boats along Morgan's Creek that face Inlet Cove and also Old Town Yacht Club. And we figured that there's about 75 boats a day that go in and out of there, and that's boat traffic, not counting recreational fishermen that come in there and fish. And if you put, depending on what type of marina you put in there, this is already a no-wake zone, which shows that it's a hazardous area, or else it wouldn't have been slowed down. So if you put another 100 boats in this area, what have you done? We'd need somebody out there in a flat-bottom skiff with a yellow vest on directing boat traffic for the owners of these slips that face Morgan Creek to even be able to get out. And so, it's our opinion and feeling that what would happen is you would actually diminish the value of the docks, and also you would create a hazardous area for people to get in and out that already have ownership there. The other thing, if you'll notice the width of that, there's a big salt marsh in the middle. That's only about a 40-yard area right there. That's a pretty constricted area to put that much boat traffic back and forth in every day. So these are just a few of the points that we'd want to mention, and thank you for your audience and listening to what we have to say.
Mr. Pittman, and then what's your address, Mr. Pittman?
100
for our records.
Old Town Yacht Club Road,
Okay, thank you, sir.
Beaufort.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the audience? Okay, sir. State your name and address.
I'm Dan Udy, 902 Oak Drive in Morehead, and I represent the family that's trying to get annexation and rezoning. Could I ask the council, our property is not directly adjacent to the people that are talking about notice, and what is the regulation, the number of feet from the property lines, since they're not
Sandy.
abutting?
Yes, Sandy can answer that question for you. Okay, thank you.
Gee, wait a minute, hold.
Say that again.
Say it again, Sandy.
So the people that are speaking tonight do not have abutting property. There is the piece of property that's remaining in the county separating Old Town Yacht Club from property in question. It's not abutting. And so what is, that's my point. Okay? About the notice that he was talking about, since it's not abutting property.
And Sandy, because I didn't hear, what did you say the time frame was, Sandy? The time frame you referred to, what was it?
What was the time frame within which we notify folks when we
Yeah.
advertise? It appears we sent notice to 47 different property owners that were abutting. The notification for the public hearing is not less than 10 nor more than 25 days. I believe in my report I indicated we had 2 public hearing signs up.
Right.
We also notify prior to planning board meeting, and the signs are up prior to that meeting as well. It's on the agenda center and in the lobby in City Hall. Those are our advertising
Thank you.
methods.
Thank
So people within 300 feet are not notified anymore?
Under our current ordinance, it's not indicated that way. So it's abutting property owners. Yes, sir.
Abutting.
Yes, sir. If we'd like to go above and beyond that, then we should amend the ordinance, and we can do that in a new ordinance. But currently, it's abutting.
From the attorney, is there a comment that you can make on the necessity of one versus another approach?
You may,
Or is it sufficient as written?
do you want to comment now or hold it till after the public hearing's closed?
Yeah, we can hold
We
it.
can hold it, and after
Yeah.
public hearing would be probably more appropriate, yeah.
Yeah, we'll hold it till after the public hearing is closed. Okay. Is there anyone else from the audience that wants to speak in favor? Yes, sir. You can state your name and address, please.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm Eddie Youngblood, 141 Morgan. I'm the only permanent property owner that lives on Morgan Street. I live on an island that's within an island. My property is in the city. On all sides of me are county property, or county non-city property, and water. So it's an island. And this board approved recently 3 additional lots on Morgan. There were initially 5, now there are 8. And you've annexed and zoned these lots for residential use. These lots are surrounded by the county land and water, as I said. And I'm not against this development. I'm very optimistic to have something positive going on Radio Island because it's been negative for a long time. The state of affairs concerning this property is a sad tale of industrial dumping, multiple boat sinkings and abandonment. 2 are still there if you haven't been there lately. Water pollution and even illegal drug activity. Provisional zoning is a normal process in most jurisdictions. And I'm here to ask you to provide provisional zoning for this request. I only ask for 2 concessions to make this zoning conditional. One is that the access to this new marina complex be only from Marine Drive and not via Morgan Street. Morgan Street is a dirt path in the area under consideration here. And the traffic from this marina will make for a dangerous and undesirable situation for all the existing residences. I also ask that the borders for the existing residential property owners be shielded by a substantial buffer system of berm and vegetation, and that any offensive systems such as fuel storage tanks cannot be located within 100 feet of residential properties. In conclusion, the board established these residential properties along Morgan Street, and the residents of Morgan Street have paid city property taxes for over a decade. We deserve your protection from commercial operations who have yet to pay any city property taxes and only want annexation and zoning now that they have decided to sell this property. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'll answer.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else from the audience that wants to speak in favor or in opposition of this rezoning request?
Mayor, I'd just like to remind everyone to speak into the microphones, whether you're at the podium and you need to move the microphone or here along the dais. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Thank you, Anna. I will allow. Yes, sir.
Again, my name is Eric Remington. I'm with the law firm of Ward and Smith, representing the 2 associations I mentioned earlier. my understanding, unless I'm drastically wrong about what Muni Code says about the ordinance, is that it says the owners of affected parcels of land and the owners of all parcels of land abutting the parcel of land shall be mailed a notice. Clearly, there's a distinction between people who are affected by this zoning request and those who have abutting property. So it's not just abutting property, it is also people who are affected by it. I just wanted to make that point clear. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
My name is Brandon Pittman, 100 Old Town Yacht Club Road. The one comment I wanted to make that we did, and most residents at Old Town didn't realize this till probably about the last month and a half. And I bring this up because I can understand completely where Mr. Youngblood was coming from on wanting access coming off of Marine Drive. Marine Drive is a really interesting road in our area because we recently called the police one Saturday because of about 200 vehicles being parked up and down at the public beach next door, and it was blocking the entrance into Old Town. And we had the police come out, and the police said, well, we see what you got in the problem, but we have no jurisdiction here. And I said, okay. So I said, well, is it Carteret County, the sheriff's department? We'll call them. No, they don't have it either. I said, the highway patrol? They said, no, it's not the state at all. In order to have anything done on that road, you've got to call the United States Navy. You ever tried to get a Navy cop out to tow somebody's car? Or suppose there was a wreck on Marine Drive. Who comes and writes a ticket? Who investigates it? If a car caught fire, now they could come put it out. The fire department could. If I even asked the question, I said, well, somebody got shot on Marine Drive. What do you do? They said, you'd have to call NCIS and have them come from Wilmington to investigate it. So as you take all of this into consideration, I just want to make sure that, and I'm sure everybody here does their homework, but Marine Drive into itself is a mess just because of how the jurisdiction of it is. And so just kind of put that into the sauce as you shake it up and make it, and how that impacts things. But thank you again.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? All right, seeing and hearing anyone, I'm gonna close the public hearing. All right, so Councilmember Taylor, you had a question for our city attorney?
Yes, certainly, there's been a lot of legal questions raised, and I wanted in my mind to ask our attorney, Derek Taylor, to sort of make sense out of this sausage for us and suggest some possible ways for it.
Both, it's not testimony because it's not quasi-judicial, but both folks that have addressed the council have said truths. We have to do the abutting property owners. Then we get into the soft language of who's affected. Okay, it is compound in the statute, as Mr. Remington has pointed out. It does, and I've looked it up, say the owners of affected parcels of land and the owners of parcels of land abutting the parcel of land shall be mailed notice. Council can decide, I think, that this document, our ordinance says affected but really who you're looking for are the people that are joining. But council could also continue this if you want this to be done. You can imagine that there with a condominium complex, I don't know how many people are over there, but that's going to significantly increase what we do for mailed notices. That's what you're going to be doing in every case where something is possibly affected and you need to do the mailing to those people. I'm not saying you can't decide that's what you want to do and continue this, but I do believe that it will be something that you can go forward with if you would like tonight, because affected is a nebulous term. Nobody has presented to you, other than what you've heard tonight, that they are actually affected, other than the things that you have heard is what they have concerns about. And you have now heard those things from people that are representative of those organizations. Maybe not all of them, but from some of them.
Mr. Mayor, could I
Yes, sir.
comment? I would like the planning director or attorney, whichever feels comfortable, or both, to comment on what the practice of the city has been while this ordinance has been in effect, because I think consistency is important. And if you've consistently interpreted it and applied it one way, I just wanted to hear if the attorney
Okay.
or planning director want to comment on that.
Excuse me, I want to say something for
Yes.
that. When you say consistency,
Yeah, and all other rezonings.
I
and
understand.
addition.
But sometimes things can be consistently wrong. Okay, so I'd like to look at it to weigh it on its merits, rather than what we've done in the past. Because sometimes things in the past haven't been always right. So I'd like to weigh it on its merits. I'm listening to citizens, and they brought some, I don't think the decision we have to make is not a technical one. I think it's one that we need to listen to the citizens and how they're being affected by what's going on. So I just want to make that comment.
Yeah,
The past ain't always right.
true, but the only footnote I would add is if we have consistently done it a way, and that has been in the interpretation of the ordinance and applying the ordinance as it's currently written, then I think that's relevant. Second thing is, if we have, whether we've done it consistently or not, the statement was made that we have not complied, and I'm not sure that that is accurate either, because if the ordinance intent is to notify, because I don't recall ever notifying everybody that can be affected. That could go a mile. I don't know how you leave it that open-ended. I think it's got to be relevance. So I agree with your comments about the substance of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, I heard some interesting comment, and so I'm just wanting to lay that out there,
Mr. Mayor, if I can.
Sir.
I mean, I appreciate what you said, Mr. Martin, it could be a mile, but with my service on the planning board and on this council, it's always been 300 feet. So when did that get changed?
That was the old way. I don't know when it was changed.
But I have always been under the assumption that it's anybody within 300 feet of the actual rezoning request. So, Mr. Attorney, did I miss something? Or Sandy, did I miss something? When did that get changed to someone being affected by it? And like Mr. Martin said, that could be a mile.
Well, it's subject to interpretation.
Okay, but when did we change from 300 feet?
I know that the ordinance had some changes when we had 160D come into play, and we're reading the language based upon what it says. And increasingly, we're encountering situations where some of our regulatory authority is being diminished. So we're reading things as we believe that they're written. I believe that the affected language went back to when third-party rezonings were allowed, and those are no longer allowed under the statute. I think that's what that affected language was. So you used to be able to rezone somebody else's property, and that's not allowed anymore. That may have been the case, and I believe that's how it's been interpreted. The 300 feet has been probably a decade. It's been a long time ago. It's been a while. Right now, the language in the ordinance says abutting. We can certainly do something greater, which is what I was mentioning earlier.
But that's where I was getting to. Your consistency will be important. It needs to be clarified and compliant with the statute, obviously. So I would leave that to the city attorney to evaluate.
So the current ordinance states that abutting, that only someone abutting a rezoning is going to be notified.
Mr. Remington read into the record exactly what it says, but I'll do it again. The owners of affected parcels of land and the owners of parcels of land abutting the parcel of land shall be mailed a notice of the hearing. So that's what it says now. It doesn't say anything about 300 feet. And this is developed over time. Probably, as she said, 160D changed everything. I don't know exactly. That's what it reads now. So the issue is what property might be affected beyond notice to the people that are doing it.
Do we have to make a decision tonight?
Well,
You have the option to
Yeah.
decide
You can-
to
you can
continue
table
this
it,
or to go
continue it.
on. If you want greater notification, that's up to the
Know how to
council.
make a decision.
All right, I've been told to stop talking, so I will stop talking.
But just for the sake of, we've already got an issue right now. I'd like to see us table it if we could.
You gonna put that in the form of a motion?
well, I just
But-
want to point out one thing, if I could. I just asked the attorney, if our memory serves me correct, unless it's changed in the statute, there is a limited amount of time that the city has to act upon zoning after the annexation period. It used to be, I think, 60 days, but there is some statutory language, or unless it's changed. I don't know if Sandy can look that up, but I just want to caution the board, we don't want to run afoul of that requirement, whatever it is. That it wouldn't preclude you from tabling or continuing, but I just want to make sure we don't stub our
Is
toe.
that a
on-
statute that we make or the state?
No,
The
that's
state?
in Raleigh.
Yeah, it's either 60 or 30.
Yeah, there is a limited period of time. She's looking at
From today.
from the
Yeah.
time the annexation's effective.
So that would be today.
Yeah, we did the same thing with the Spooner's Code, where we tabled it. That was 30 days, though.
Yeah, as long as we don't run afoul of that, I got no objection to continue it until you get further clarification. I think Sandy made a very good point, though. Affected property could be interpreted as the property that's being zoned. Is that a fair assessment of what you tried to relay? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think Baloo made a good point about the 300 feet too, I think.
It's
Well,
not-
no, the 300 feet was a requirement for notice to other properties,
But I
not
understand,
affected
but
property.
I just would like to see if we can table it if we can.
But not only does this, not only does it affect what we're on the table with right now, but how many other, we've got public hearings coming, and how many people were,
The ordinance needs to be more
I
clearly
mean,
defined.
We
that's the
noticed
thing.
a budding on all of them, I
budding.
presume.
About it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we.
that's been
so-
the practice, and that's what I was referring to earlier. Since the ordinance was written the way it is, which has been a while.
I'd like to table it if it.
But can I ask this, Mr. Walker?
Yes,
You're going
sir.
to table it for what reason? To do what?
To clarify this,
Well,
so that we can.
I think we're getting a clarification
I
now,
don't think we are.
Well,
I think decisions have already been made using
what?
whatever guidelines have been there that we're questioning today.
Well, but why is it coming up now? If it's been done that way, and now.
No,
I'm just-
remember that way it's
Well,
always been.
Hang on just a minute.
Okay.
You know, these folks out here, and I just met them, right before the meeting, a lot of them are not full-time residents. Some of them may be, I don't know, but they're not. Obviously, the zoning signs were out there, and if curiosity strikes, you make a phone call, and the telephone number's on there to find out what the rezoning, what that's all about. So, I don't fault, I don't fault, the planning department.
Oh, no, this is not,
for
this isn't,
doing what they have been doing for a decade, because that's the way it's done. But I don't see, all of a sudden, we're gonna change in fifth gear on this and turn around and I don't see it, okay?
We just verified it's within 60 days, so we obviously can table to the next meeting, and then you can.
And
And actually-
can we verify when we changed?
Sure.
Anyone affected within 300 feet of a
She
rezoning
can verify
request?
when
Can
the
you
ordinance
verify
was
that was?
amended, yes.
When that was, Sandy?
I do not believe the ordinance said 300, and I think it's more of making sure that our procedures are in line with what the ordinance actually says. We can certainly expand that when we look to adjust the ordinance, but we're not holding the developers to a higher standard than the council has set forth in the ordinances that you've enacted.
So you don't think the 300 feet has ever been?
I do not think so, but I will go back and
We will
be sure, I
verify it.
promise.
We'll check it before the next
I have a
meeting.
question for council.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Councilman Chambers.
So when you are talking about the affected property, is there two ways you could read that? One would be the affected property is actually the property that's being rezoned
That's right.
along with the abutting property. So you have that interpretation, but then you also have an interpretation where George is talking about the 300 feet and clarification. In your opinion, do you think that that was written to talk about the property being zoned as the affected property?
Well, as you have heard from the planning department, this affected parcels came into play about third parties being able to rezone somebody else's property, and therefore they were affected. But the applicants now are not in that category because they can't be. So I think this is legacy language, okay, and what is meant by it and what the planning department has done is these properties that are being annexed, and then particularly with initial zoning like we're talking about, the affected property is the property that's the subject property of those particular items. Now, I'm not saying there isn't an alternative interpretation, which has been presented to you by Mr. Remington, and that is, everybody doesn't know about this. Council can, if they decide to do that, continue this hearing to the next meeting and ask the planning department to notify how many people you want to go, how far you want to go out. You need to let them know what you consider to be affected property.
What precedents are we setting then?
That's right.
Well,
What kind of length do you have? How far out?
Well,
You know, how many people? And then do we have somebody else saying, well,
Well,
you
300
affected
feet,
25?
that's what you had before.
I really think that if you want to go forward tonight, you'll be okay, and then if we get into court, we get into court. The issue is up to council whether they want more people here and more people notified or not.
Jewel just provided that, the chapter 160B of the general statutes, if you want to read that. Oh, did I mess it up? Jewel?
Just table.
It defines affected property
Okay.
in the statute apparently, that 160D.
And what is,
They're
We
trying to
find
pull
it
it back
again.
up. They
We can
lost
pull
it.
it back up. I messed it up.
And don't let me
Touch
touch
it.
a phone.
But your point's well taken. If affected were broadly construed, that could be anybody in town on
Yeah.
certain
Yes,
rezonings.
that's right.
So, I mean,
Yes.
you know, they could make that argument, so I don't think that,
Let's see what Council Taylor has to say.
it is,
you read it first, it's wise.
So this is an opinion, right? Not from the, what is the source of this?
You need to look at it, maybe
That's the,
talk about it.
oh, it's canon.
Mhm. Yep. Maybe they, well, maybe it is vague. Figure out what they think the property is, that's affecting the property that's being affected.
What's the Jeopardy,
What
the old Jeopardy tune?
School goes.
while we're waiting, can I ask Ron a question, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I'll permit it.
Hey, Ron, can you come back up to the podium? You've heard the discussion, is the access to this property, are they gonna be using their, Marine Drive? Are they gonna be using Morgan Street? Or where they're gonna have their access if they develop a marina?
Has not been determined. There's not a site plan in place.
Okay, is there anything there as far as putting up any kind of buffering?
I mean, you have buffering and landscaping requirements in your ordinance that would be adhered to no matter what happens.
Right,
You know, when you have different zones, that's what your ordinance covers.
right. But do you have a better, as far as which way you would go, as far as Marine Drive?
I think
Are you gonna use, I mean,
there's been several developers that have looked at this property over the years.
right,
Most of the traffic is on Marine Drive, on those concept plans that they developed versus Morgan Street.
because you know I don't have to tell you the condition of Morgan Street.
No,
It's terrible.
no, it is.
I just cannot believe that someone would go and put a development there and plan on using Morgan Street without getting on, on Marine.
But if you look at the sketch that's up on there right now, Councilman, if I was developing a multi-million-dollar project, I'd improve that road if I was using it. And you you can see, everything on the west side of Morgan, if they were trying to use it, any developer that I work with would improve that street. But there's not a plan that's been developed, that's, to my knowledge, anywhere in that vicinity.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts from the council?
I'm trying to wonder, is it taking you that long, guys, over there to find something?
He's reading it.
Yes, I closed the public hearing. It's already closed, sir. Marines Drive.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, can I call him to the podium? And if I
We have
call-
to have a motion to open public comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if I call him up here, we're not in a public hearing, but we can call somebody to the podium.
You should have it on the record in a public hearing, so reopen the public hearing and then somebody come in.
Yeah.
I thought we could call
But
somebody.
no, we gotta reopen the public hearing.
Because if you don't,
A council member cannot call someone to the podium?
after you reopen the public hearing.
Oh. Okay.
If you don't,
If you
why
go,
are you gonna let him do it and not everybody
Everybody
else?
Well, because I called him,
No,
a council member has
And
not.
therefore, when somebody says you can't call
Thank
him
you.
and not allow me to speak, you're
Thank
going, the
Exactly.
public hearing is a public hearing, anybody else.
Yes, sir.
You know.
Yes, sir.
That's the purpose for closing it down.
Thank you.
It's not. But council looking at
Take a minute.
but you want to see what it should have.
Look at it.
this, and she has something else.
Yeah, this is something else. Can you show him what you?
I agree. That was a school ago.
Bill, do you remember 300?
Where it talks about vested rights, the
Yep.
effective
Thank you, Bill.
landowners
With our
want to
time
be.
on the planning board,
Yep.
it's always been 300 feet.
We never had a public house on that.
effective.
My time on the planning board, everyone was 300 feet.
Not effective, but effective.
Is that not what we're? You're looking for
I don't know when that
effective?
changed.
That was a long time ago.
No, sir.
When you were on the planning board, that's 20 years
But
ago.
I've always been under that assumption, Mark, that we've notified
Oh, the
within
vested
300
rights
feet.
is the one I was talking about.
But there is a situation
What we're talking about, but it's no way.
that has been described on Marine Drive where you have conflicting jurisdictions.
Yeah.
And of course, when you get the federal government involved, it don't get better.
No.
I mean, it just don't.
But Councilman Taylor, you know that there's always been a gray when it comes to marine. It's always been.
Yep.
Still.
But, what
If they
I
wanna
was
do it.
saying is,
Yeah.
if we're going to send it back, and I think we need to get the answers before we proceed forward. If we're gonna send it back, I can see that if I was one of the people that owned property against that little body of water, that I would want the developer to develop an appropriate road and have it owned by the city. Because otherwise, it's gonna continue to be a trashy road
Good point.
that is always debated on who's supposed to fix it. And the real truth is, it never gets fixed. It remains substandard. We ought to take this opportunity while we're fixing some of this other stuff to guarantee the people that's invested that money into a decent street.
But then I heard from a comment, not there in public hearing, that they were planning on using Marine Drive. So that changes the whole.
I think yes, they did say that, but I wonder if they understood the full ramification for what they said.
You understand?
Because certainly, no one, unless it's come up before, like we've had in different plans, no one knows about these problems on Marine Drive.
Yes, sir.
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
That came up, Marine Drive came up way back when Old Town was originally built.
It sure was.
I recall.
Any other thoughts?
At this point, have you got a motion yet?
No, not yet.
Your answer is still the same as we did before. I was reading vested rights, which is a different statute than the one we're talking about, defines affected property as being the subject property. That might be influential, but here's the bottom line. You want to give more notice to more people and continue this hearing to the next meeting so that everybody gets notice that you want to get notice. And if so, how do you want to define how far you want to go? Because I don't think that our ordinance requires it. I don't think the statute requires it. But if you want it, you can do that and tell the planning department to expand their notice. Leave the signs up, create the new hearing date, and then leave this hearing as a continued hearing for the next meeting. It'll be republished. Well, you don't really have to republish, but you might want to. This is up to you. I don't believe you have to, but if that's what you want to do, and I think I'm hearing from one of our council people, that's what he wants to do, you need a motion to continue this hearing to the next meeting. That will still be within the 60-day period that we have for the initial zoning, and you can do that.
Well, it's only fair that we set a perimeter that our citizens of Morehead City or Carter County need to be notified of anything that's going on or any changes going on within their area. There needs to be a perimeter. And again, I will stand on the 300 feet that I was always under the impression that was from the planning board when I served, and what I've always thought that was the perimeter now. And I'm going to research it.
I would like,
There's not time enough tonight to
Yeah.
research it, but I will research it.
We can certainly do that, and it may have been a practice of 300 feet as a one way to interpret.
Yes, sir.
But I think that exceeded the ordinance requirement, likely, it sounds like.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to put forward a motion,
Okay.
okay, that we table this.
For how many days? 30 or 60?
We'll go to 60 days.
Well, no, we can't go to 60.
Well, I mean, to be within the limit, right?
I'd say I'd go to the next meeting.
All right, to the next
That'd be
meeting, yeah.
September the 8th.
All right, to the next meeting.
September the 8th.
And during that time, that the planning department gets to notify everybody within 300 feet of the affected area.
Okay.
Okay.
If I might assist with your motion.
Yes, sir.
That you reopen the hearing, because it's closed right now, and continue that hearing to the next meeting, giving a notice to the planning department to publish or do what they need to do for their mailing. And I'm hearing over here for 300 feet from the subject property. Is that what you want?
That's what I would like to do.
That's what I've always understood. I would certainly second the motion and see where it goes.
So what
I
would be,
think that's been the
what would be
practice.
accomplished out of that?
The accomplished would be, Councilman Abel, that I feel like as a practice, the town has always notified anyone within a 300-foot perimeter of any changes.
Well,
And that's a practice that I've always
You
understood.
said have always. Obviously, it hasn't been always
Well-
in the last 10 years. You just heard Sandy talk about that. But what I'm getting at, what are we going to accomplish by pushing it out for 30 days?
We're going to
What
know-
is, what, other
I'm
than
sorry.
you're notifying more people to come to the next city council meeting to either, talk against it or talk for it, and we're back to square one? What is going to be
We
accomplished?
won't be at square one. We'll be able to make a decision, because at that point, we'll have people who have now been notified.
If we
Well,
continue
see,
the
I-
closed hearing, though, does that,
I'm sorry.
if we continue the closed hearing, does that mean that when the next time we meet, does that mean that we have to reopen for public comment first?
No, if you go back
Reopen
to
tonight.
tonight, you would,
You have
part
to
of the
reopen.
motion that
It'll
he
be
is
open.
making to reopen the public hearing and continue it to the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to instruct the planning department to go, if that's what you desire, 300 feet out from the
With
affected
additional
property.
So if we choose the table, we can choose it during the closed part, but then, or do we have to open it first?
You have to open it as, you can do it as part of this motion, you can do it as a separate motion. The idea is to get it reopened and continued. Right now, it's closed. Therefore, you can't continue with a
Well-
closed hearing.
Let's make it, let's include what Nate is trying to put in this motion. What are you trying to put in there, Nate, to make?
just wanted to make sure that we're following the right procedure
Right,
as far
okay,
as whether we have to open it, the meeting before we vote on the, tabling, or whether we do that during the closed session and then, or the closed meeting. So I just want to make sure.
You
we're following the right
could,
procedure.
with a closed meeting, you could republish. What you're doing when you continue a hearing is that you don't have to go through the newspaper stuff, et cetera. All those people that have been notified. If you continue it, you only have to notify those that say they weren't notified, and you want to expand that notification process.
But if-
by
In other
mail.
words, open it up, open the public hearing back up, is what he's trying to say, is the
That's-
easiest and best way to do it, and then make a motion to table it for the next meeting.
It's not
And it
even,
will-
it's not even a table, because if you
So we're gonna
reopen,
continue
Continue.
the
Got-
public.
Continue is the
That's
word.
what I
the
mean.
motion is to reopen the hearing, the public hearing, continue it to the next meeting.
And notify people within 300 feet of this rezoning
Correct.
request.
I'm gonna,
That's by mail.
yeah,
Right.
I don't know that it needs to be 300 feet, but that's not my decision, so.
Not gonna-
Anyhow,
I believe that when you do the research, you're going to find that the 300 feet was not a matter of law at that time, but it was a matter of policy,
Yes, sir.
practice.
It was a notice.
So that carries less of legal requirement. For simplicity, that we've got enough floating around in the air tonight, I think we're safe to go ahead and notify for the 300 feet and move this thing forward to get the more important questions researched and a clarification available to us next meeting.
Now, it's up to you to do that. I think that's what the motion was.
That's
I
exactly
think the
right.
secretary, or clerk, not secretary, has got that. I have not heard a second yet, but if that's
George,
what
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Harvey Walker.
to do
Sec-
what?
To open the public hearing back up.
Okay.
To open the public hearing, if you want, okay, fine. Okay, open the public hearing, and we'll go to the second motion. I don't care. I was trying to combine it all together, but that's
Well,
fine.
let's,
If you want, are you going to second
you're seconding.
Mr. Walker's
Right.
motion?
Will you repeat your motion, sir?
Repeat my motion.
All right, his motion is to reopen the public hearing and continue that hearing to the next meeting, and instruct the planning department to do mail notice to everyone within 300 feet of the affected property.
I will second that motion.
Right.
Okay, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem George Blue. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Okay, it's unanimous. So, public hearing is now reopened for the rezoning of 191 and 195 Morgan Street and 201 Marine Drive to be continued till the next council meeting in September. Okay.
I have a question. We have other matters dealing with rezoning and property.
Mhm.
Does the conversation that we've had up to this point affect any of these cases, and if so, how?
Well, I'm going to say that I think the ordinance says affected property, and looking at the whole of 160D, you have heard from the planning department that affected property is the subject property, and I think that's what was intended with our ordinance. You have determined that based on what you have heard, that for this particular matter that you have done, you would like to hear from more people and have taken the action to do so. I believe that you are safe to say that the next thing comes up, affected property means the subject property. I do believe we might want to spend a little time on actually defining that in our ordinance. Maybe we'll look at that, maybe bring you an ordinance amendment that says that, whether it's necessary or not. It clarifies the world, and that's a good thing. But for the other things that are coming forward, unless you consider the need for additional information for you to be able to proceed with whatever these things are, I don't think you are controlled by what you did in this case.
I think that for reasons of moving our business forward as a city, that we look at the one we just did as a specific problem or situation, and the rest we consider as valid as presented.
You will
And
have that
we
opportunity. Mr. Allen.
continue our business for the night.
Yes. Thank you,
I will
Councilman.
give you the general interpretation of what you said. You want to hear from more people. Okay? If you don't consider that to be necessary for anything else that you got business for, then you can make that decision as well.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. And Sean, for our public records, can you put in the record that at our next planning committee, meeting, that we're gonna discuss, that ordinance and to see if the council needs to more clearly define that ordinance, and that can be vetted in our next planning committee meeting in September. Okay, thank you.
I would stretch that to include the notification process.
Okay, and to include a notification process. Thank you, Councilman Taylor. Okay, so moving on to item 4C, rezoning of 202 Pensacola Avenue. Sandy?
Okay. The Cullifer Group, on behalf of Pelletier Properties LLC, requests to rezone approximately 0.35 acres from R10 Single Family Residential to CMCZ Commercial Marina Conditional Zoning District. A prior conventional rezoning request was reviewed by the Planning Board in April, but was withdrawn prior to council action. The present request uses conditional zoning to limit the property to specified marina-related uses and to prohibit certain activities. The subject property is currently undeveloped and lies within the corporate limits. The surrounding area includes single-family residences and vacant residential property to the east, south, and west, with marina uses to the north and northeast. The property is currently zoned R10. Residential zoning continues primarily to the east, south, and west, while CM zoning is located to the north and northeast. The property is within the Midtown Neighborhood Planning Area of the Morehead City Plan 2032 and is classified as neighborhood residential on the future land use map. The Planning Board conducted a review of neighborhood residential classification and the Midtown Neighborhood Planning Area objectives, and the Planning Board ultimately found the request to be generally consistent with the Morehead City Plan 2032, reasonable and in the public interest. Those findings were adopted in Planning Board Resolution 2026-0006 and are reflected in the draft Council Resolution 2026-R30. This is a list of the uses permitted in the R10 zoning district, which the property is currently zoned. And this table shows the uses permitted in the commercial marina district. The highlighted uses are the uses the applicant has requested to be allowed in the proposed conditional zoning district. Unlike a conventional rezoning, only the uses and conditions incorporated into the conditional zoning ordinance would apply to this property. Conditions must be approved by council and consented to by the petitioner. The UDO's commercial marina standards ordinarily identify several activities that may be associated with a marina, and for this property, boat service and repair and boat petroleum service areas would be prohibited as proposed. Approval would be subject to the two applicant agreed upon conditions as shown on the screen. First, the CMCZ district would be limited to the listed marina related uses, and marine storage and repair yards and all unlisted uses would be prohibited. Second, the activities associated with a commercial marina would be narrowed, expressly prohibiting boat service and repair and boat petroleum service areas. The property was posted with a public hearing sign. The hearing was advertised and abutting property owners were notified. During the planning board meeting, 3 individuals spoke in favor of the request and 6 spoke in opposition. The planning board recommended approval subject to the 2 proposed conditions and adopted Resolution 2026-0006, which is reflected in the council's resolution. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So Sandy, that map right there.
Yes, that's in your agenda materials.
Okay, so they were people that were contacted. And
those are the folks, so in lieu of a community meeting, because this is a conditional rezoning, so the last request was conventional, but with conditional rezonings, there is a recommended community meeting. And in lieu of doing that community meeting, the developer opted to do one-on-one outreach. And so some of the folks that received outreach also commented, just because of the similarities where some of the addressing street to street was similar, and the copies of the written comment are included in your agenda as well.
Any other questions for Sandy? Okay. Public hearing is now open. Anyone in the audience want to get up and speak in favor or in opposition? Mr. Culliver.
Good evening again. Ron Culliver, representing the applicant in this rezoning request. We were before you several months ago with a blanket rezoning request to commercial marina, and not the conditional zoning. And the reason for that request from this council was that they felt like there was some uses that are allowed in that zone that were not conducive to the neighborhood. So we took those comments and questions and modified our request to have the conditional zoning addition to restrict those uses that we saw earlier that we think it was more intrusive to the neighborhood. So this tract of land, you know, is relatively small. It's 0.35 acres. And should you rezone this and it get developed, what I've kind of shown in green is the buffering requirements that we, you know, talked about on the earlier project. So the to the west, should this be developed, there's a type B buffer that would be required, and also to basically the south. That type B buffer would require an 8-foot fence and 2 separate rows of landscaping as shown. If you take the area of the required landscaping out, the available area is about, I can read my notes here, about 11,000 square feet. So there's not a lot that can be done with this other than the circulation and parking and storage. My clients included in your packet, you know, what we are proposing in their community outreach. And there's what they are proposing is additional boat and trailer storage, improve access to their marina, which is adjoining them directly north of this property, better traffic flow, and there was a lot of conversation about traffic flow at the planning board meeting, and then basically a clean, professional managed property, which is their goal. So if this were to be rezoned as requested, it gives the users of this facility another opportunity to get into this marina. There's a lot of discussion about all the different ways you can go through the community, and I agree there's a lot of ways you can come and go. But you can't go to that property from here unless we get rezoned. So that at least opens up another avenue of access. You know, I've done business with the marina repair shop to the north, and I always came in by the marina. And it's one of those things that we think is a reasonable request. And we acted based on the guidance that you provided us when we were here last, and respectfully request approval.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Culliver.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to get up and speak in favor or in opposition for this rezoning request? Yes, ma'am. State your name and address when you come up.
Good evening. My name is Emily Nobles, and I live at 210 Pensacola Avenue. For those who may not know, my husband's family has deep roots in Bonham Heights. His great-grandfather, Alva Hamilton, helped develop this neighborhood, along with Dr. Bonner. The name Bonham itself comes from their names, Bon for Bonner and Ham for Hamilton. This isn't just where we live. It is part of our family history. It is where generations before us helped build a community and where we are now raising our children. I'm here tonight to respectfully ask that you vote against rezoning 202 Pensacola Avenue from residential to commercial marine. Generally speaking, I do not like telling other people what to do or not do with their property. I respect the rights of property owners, but this feels different. Rezoning this property does not affect this property alone. It permanently changes what can occur within an established residential neighborhood and affects everyone who lives around it. At the July Planning Board meeting, one board member stated what I believe is at the heart of this issue. This neighborhood simply does not have the infrastructure to support a marina. Our roads are narrow. In some places, it is difficult for even two vehicles to pass each other. We have tight curves and turns, and there is no direct access from Arundel Street to the marina. Traffic must travel through residential streets that were never designed to accommodate this type of commercial activity. Yet, here we are considering expanding a commercial marine zoning further into a neighborhood that arguably does not have the infrastructure to support what is already there. There is also still not enough information available to the public. At the last town council meeting, the council delayed this request because of unanswered questions about the plans and safety concerns. While the property owners have since distributed a flyer, residents still have not been presented with formal drawings, renderings, or a detailed plan that would allow us to fully understand what is being proposed. A permanent zoning decision should not be made based on incomplete information. And once this property is rezoned, that designation stays with the property. This decision is not simply about what the current owners intend to do tomorrow. It is about what could be permitted there years or even decades from now. I'm not opposed to responsible growth or property owners making reasonable use of their property, but that growth should be supported by adequate infrastructure, and it should not come at the expense of the safety and residential character of an established neighborhood. For those reasons, I respectfully ask you to protect Bonham Heights and vote no on this rezoning request. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Is there anyone else that would like to get up and speak in favor or in opposition? Yes, ma'am. State your name and address.
Yep, Jana Moss, 217 Pensacola. First of all, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I am also opposed to this. I really echo everything Emily mentioned. The infrastructure is just not set up to support, any added traffic into the neighborhood. A lot of the planning board was focused on just that parcel. They voted just on that parcel, not necessarily. There was a lot of discussion about, do they include, the additional parcel that it's going to be joined to? So they really just voted on the parcel that it is. There is an existing marina there, and like, we talked about last time, the roads are already, and you can't really fit two cars down the road. Boats, there's a lot of traffic already on Saturdays, and just, there's kids, and I walk in the neighborhood a lot, so the infrastructure just, I do not think can support added, cannot be expanded. And then similarly to what Emily said, when we came to this meeting, I think it was in May, y'all did ask for, hey, please come back to us with more of a plan, and we still don't feel like we've seen that. There's no site plan, and as we've seen in other projects with the same developer, they definitely do site plans, and they have a lot of planning. So I would like to think there's probably one there that's more than just the flyer we received, but we have not seen it. So I respectfully ask, that y'all decline this, based on this feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir. State your name and address.
Blow your ears off. My name's Nick Shiatakis. I live at 208 Pensacola Avenue. I'm speaking in opposition of this again. To add to what they have already said, which I agree with, our neighborhood is a rejuvenating neighborhood. There's a lot of more younger families moving in. kids. I have 2 kids. There's, on this road in question right here on Pensacola Avenue, there's already 4 kids under the age of 7. You know, we walk our kids in strollers and stuff like that, and what concerns me is allowing this access like this marina, you know, on the weekends, we're going to have, they could have 50 to 75 boats or whatever on there, and the amount of traffic, and then what also concerns me is the kind of traffic we're going to be having on this road. You know, I know we've all had our boat days and stuff like that, and, you know, in the afternoons when people get back on the boat, you know, I worry about their condition driving on our neighborhood roads. We shouldn't have to worry about that. We bought this property and moved to this neighborhood for the safety reasons of it and everything like that. The other thing is this property, there was a street map a minute ago, but if you look, the land use plan for, obviously for this property was, for the past 50 years, was residential. It's consistent with all the other residential lots in the neighborhood. The commercial lots around it, they're obviously much bigger and that kind of thing, which makes sense, and they're on the water. I think, you know, their idea for the commercial property they bought is fine. I don't see why our neighborhood and potentially our property values should be affected because they want to take a residential lot and add to that. If they wanted to do that, I think the typical procedure would have been, prior to purchasing the lots, to do a contract with the previous landowner or a written agreement or whatever saying, hey, we'll buy the property contingent on us being able to rezone this property for commercial if that was our intent. So it seems like a lack of due diligence on that, which also concerns me going forward with what they do with the land. Another concern is, you know, is this going to be a camper lot? There hasn't been anything saying that campers can't be there. Is this going to turn into, because there's already a camper on the property now, on the commercial property next to it. I would hope that it's not going to turn into a mini campground with a boat ramp. So I'm trying to shorten this up a little bit, but the last meeting there was one of the council members said, well, this property, the commercial property beside it that they purchased, was always a marina. Yes, it was, but it was a marina with 8 boat slips. One of the boat slips was the homeowner, the property owner that lived there. It was his. It was not a marina like this. It did not have a boat ramp. It had a railway slip. That is the traditional way of pulling boats out of the water. It did not have this kind of traffic. And like they said, our streets are not set up for this. I mean, a lot of times when you pass somebody, you have to pull over into somebody's yard. So, you know, it's going to be a lot more traffic in comparison to what this property has ever been used for. So, anyways, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick. Is there anyone else? Okay, Paula, state your name and address.
Paula Hoffman, 907 Evans Street. Good evening. A year ago, this past spring, Mr. Cullifer was on the City Council agenda to reduce setbacks for dry stack storage facilities throughout the entire city by changing the UDOs. Additionally, he wanted to change the UDOs for parking requirements at marina locations. The fire department and others spoke against the dry stack storage setback reductions because of the safety hazards it created to adjacent properties, in particular adjacent residential properties. Reduced parking requirements next to adjacent residential neighborhoods was also opposed because of the negative impact to the neighbors by parking in front of homes and increased traffic, putting children and walkers at risk. The UDO request for the dry stack setback changes was withdrawn. I believe that this rezoning of 202 Pensacola is a part of the same project Mr. Cullifer might have been pursuing a year ago and would not disclose the location to the public. Unfortunately, the 202 Pensacola property, in combination with the Pelletier Creek Marina, does not have the square footage needed for a dry stack storage, a restaurant, and a number of other uses allowed by the requested zoning, nor required parking. Allowing this zoning change adjacent to a residential area presents a huge change to the quality of life in the neighborhood, potentially reduces their property values, increases traffic, puts children and walkers who live in the residential area in danger due to increased traffic. This neighborhood does not have sidewalks. Additionally, I'm concerned that once the zoning is changed, Mr. Colorford will return wanting to reduce setbacks next to residential areas, as he pursued last year. In the completed plan, if the completed plan were provided, it would end all of this speculation. If the owner would work with the neighborhood, perhaps compromises could be made. If I lived there, I would worry that there was a much larger plan, potentially combining more properties to create a much larger project, creating even a more significant effect on the neighborhood. I'm seeing many projects like this where the future land use map is being ignored and allowed changes are reducing the quality of life that Morehead City has enjoyed for so many years. I would ask you to take care of our community and its future growth by not allowing the zoning change as it is currently requested. I would suggest Mr. Culliford and the property owner he represents provide a specific plan to the neighbors and see if a mutually agreeable plan could be reached. Please do not allow this zoning plan change as it is today. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Is there anyone else? Seeing and hearing no one, I now close the public hearing. Council.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna try to address what a few of y'all were talking about a while ago. I don't know that the property owner, Mr. Culliford, can give a detailed plan of what they're gonna do until it's rezoned, if it's rezoned. But you know what the property is and how big it is, and we already know it's not big enough to put a dry stack. It's not big enough, I don't think, for a restaurant or anything like that. As far as the roads go, I know most of y'all lived on Pensacola Avenue, but it seems like, and to me now, it just seems like by opening that up as an entrance, it would take the burden off of Pensacola Avenue, where they currently have to go down to get down to, South Shore Drive and back around to that property. I would think that you would want that. I don't know, but I'm just, at this point, just saying some things here, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Any other thoughts?
Can I ask Sandy a question?
Yes.
Sandy, with this being conditional use zoning, why don't we have specific uses of what's going to be used on this piece of property? I mean, it's conditional use.
It's on there, you do, it's right there.
Okay.
Yes, on the
You had
thing
it.
Ron
Yeah.
put together.
So that,
You got those.
so our ordinance really doesn't specify with a conditional use really what the use is going to be. I mean, it just opens it up that those things could be done. But it
If
doesn't
you
narrow
approve it that
down.
way, yes.
So
and
it doesn't narrow it down with the conditional use of what's going to be used for the piece of property.
It can be narrowed down further, it can be more broad. It's just a matter, at this point, of what the applicant has submitted to you. We'll bring it forward through the process and bring you their application. And these are the uses that they have proposed in their application to the city, in addition to limiting some of the other standards in the extra standards section pertaining to boat service and repairs and boat petroleum service areas.
And if it's not my mistake, and I didn't mean to cut you out, but if this goes through and they come back with a site plan, whatever you want to call it, it's got to probably go back before the planning board, and it will at least come back for us as well.
No, sir.
It will not.
More than likely, it would not if it's just a site plan that's subject typically to an administrative review, which is
yeah.
just staff level review.
Right.
And in conjunction to a piece attached to it, depending on what development they're doing, parking requirements may apply, as long as we still have parking requirements. Buffering would apply. You know, we have a screen requirement, so if there is development that occurs, then we would be reviewing that with any application, but typically that's an administrative review.
Okay. So the picture that Mr. Culper put up a few minutes ago, that's not in our pack, that picture. That's not in our, is that the buffering that he is proposing?
I think you may have
Yeah,
received
we
a
do.
copy of a site plan in your packet. And if, I know that we got a version of this to put in the PowerPoint today. Is this?
But I don't,
But you had given it previously? Okay.
but I can't, I have not found that in my packet, so it maybe. But anyway, so that's a 10-foot buffer that he's proposing around the property.
So if the proposed zoning designation is commercial marina, and if it is developed adjacent to a residential parcel, then a 10-foot wide landscape strip is required with a fence, solid fence, and 2 rows of evergreen trees. And there's 1 row of evergreen trees that's planted on closer together, and then the second row is planted further apart. And that's kind of depicted in that type B buffer that they're
So there'll be no access on Pensacola. It'll be from the adjoining property to the north.
There is no condition on any of these approvals limiting access.
So there could be access on Pensacola.
There could be access on Pensacola, yes, sir.
Okay. Could that be a condition? No access from Pensacola? Mr. Attorney?
No access or access?
No access.
From
That they-
Pensacola, so you'd rather for them to travel down Pensacola and down to South Shore Drive?
There
and
would
back
be
up
no
Walnut
access,
Avenue?
there would be no access on the east side of Pensacola. They would have to have the access from the property to the north.
But they don't own
It's
the
not their
property.
property.
That's not their property. No. Okay.
Yeah, that would be worse. That would force them to go down to the other street, I guess.
Oh, so they do not own the property too? Okay.
Sandy,
Councilman
do you have,
Wow.
one of those infrared lights?
I'm not very good at doing that.
It'll probably work on this screen.
A
It won't
laser.
Work on that.
So,
Yeah.
Sandy, also just for clarification, they can build a marina by right based on the zoning as it is right now, correct?
As it is right now, we're talking about the main piece, so.
The main piece.
Yes, if we go back, if it will allow me, now that I have done something to it, to the aerial image, that piece that they also own to the northwest is not part of the current application.
Right.
And that is currently zoned commercial marina, so yes, sir, a marina could be constructed on that parcel. The parcel that is the subject of this application is the piece that's highlighted in red on the image there only.
So the piece that they own to the north, which is accessed by Roanoke Avenue, they could build a dry stack marina and be able to do everything that's allowed in commercial marina as it's zoned right now, by right. They don't even have to come with an application, correct?
Anything that's listed as a permitted use,
Mhm.
they could do by right. Anything that requires a special use permit, sorry, I'm on the wrong one, would require a special use permit be requested from the Board of Adjustment.
So everything on the left, permitted uses, they could build by right now
Yes,
without
sir.
even have to come in front of us.
Subject to any additional standards, yes, sir.
Yeah, and so what they're proposing is that they get that piece of property so that they can come in by having that rezoned, allows them to come in with the drive, and that way they don't have to travel around Pensacola, South Shore, or Roanoke.
Potentially, yes, sir.
And so either we, as a board, we have to make a decision to allow that, where you have access, where they're traveling down Pensacola a little bit, or we deny it, and then they continue to do their development, that they come in through Roanoke Avenue, which would create a lot more traffic. Okay?
Do you have that infrared thing?
Did you want to use it, or do you want?
I want to stick on that
He puts that
subject.
buffer around it.
Okay.
That would be access down Roanoke, and there'd be no access on Pensacola with that buffering that.
Mhm.
Picture of.
Right.
That's the reason I was asking, is there access on Pensacola Avenue, or would they use Roanoke Avenue and put that buffer?
Speaking to the mic.
Yeah.
My mic, yeah. I'm sorry.
Yep.
That's the reason I asked that question.
Councilman Taylor has
I'm
a
sorry. Go ahead.
question.
He wants the infrared.
hit it all.
I'm pointing it everywhere. I don't see anything.
Let me see the man.
That's a laser.
That's a laser, yeah.
There it is.
What, give it to me?
All right, you see that? You see, here, look at it. There's that button right there.
Jesus, no wonder I can't see it.
There you go. Whoa, whoa.
Whoa.
You really hit the button yourself, dude.
Holly, you okay?
All right. In my mind, I'm gonna give that up. In my mind, we talked about making this a conditional,
Speaking to the mic, Councilman Taylor.
it's right here.
And if you tell me where you want me to point it, I can, up here.
We talked about making it a conditional zone. In my mind, the less intrusive way to provide access for marina that already exists. You're not going to eliminate that marina that's there now.
Absolutely.
But when it changes hands, we, the city, has got to provide them access to the water's edge and their boats. To me, traffic should be allowed to come in on News Avenue, turn right on Central Avenue, turn left on Pensacola, and across that vacant lot, and would not be able to continue down Pensacola, get involved with North Shore Drive or Roanoke Drive. I don't think boat traffic belongs on those little narrow Pensacola and Roanoke Avenue roads. We ought to get that traffic off of Central and Pensacola as fast as we can, get them to the boat and get them away from the dock. And that was part of the purpose of the conditional uses. And I think that would be easy to put on a diagram by the developers and see if that traffic pattern could work on the property that's available. Can you do that, Ron? Can you engineer the traffic to make primary turns at Central Avenue, Pensacola, and into that newly purchased vacant lot, and get the traffic back out into the highway the same way without involving the rest of Pensacola, South Shore Drive or Roanoke, and present it to this group of citizens in the neighborhood? I think that's the type of detail. How are you going to get traffic into and out of the marina without putting traffic in the lower end of Pensacola, South Shore, or Roanoke? That's what they don't want.
And that was where my question, because when I saw the picture of the buffering around that piece of property, that's the reason I was asking, where is the access? Are they going to have access off of Pensacola? Are they going to go down Roanoke? That was the reason I was asking. And I certainly agree with what you just said, but I don't think that's the plan of the developer, that they want to use that for access.
No, they've got to redo the buffer plan in order to make that work, because you got to drive through what was the buffer to get into the rest of the parking lot.
I don't think that's what they want.
That little travel trailer, I understood, was a sales office, type of thing. Maybe have a few snacks in there or something. But it was never intended to be, as somebody said, a camper trailer parking lot.
So what I'm gathering is figure out a way to engineer it so that there's no access in there from Roanoke Avenue. That part gets closed off.
And the upper end of Pensacola.
But if I could interject, they have that now. The marina has access. You can't take that away.
Okay, yeah,
You
but it would,
follow? Roanoke is their access.
and I don't know, and you're right, you can't take that away, but if it was opened up on that.
That's an
Open-
alternative.
doing.
You can have an
open-
alternative.
You open the lot and make it attractive for it to be the primary.
You certainly can do that if the
access,
rezoning
and that is
goes
within
through.
our requirement,
Sure.
within our allowance.
And now, whether it's intended or not, and I'm sure y'all have seen this, the way I look at this is what they say, improved access to Pelletier Creek Marina, I'll talk in a minute, better access to marina facilities and the waterfront. To me, that's saying opening that up as an entrance exit, and I see some head shaking out there.
But I certainly agree with Emily and her friend, excuse me for me not remembering,
Shannon.
that traffic on the other end of Pensacola, where most of the small kids and family and walking takes place, we should try to keep that road free and clear. They're too narrow and too,
That's right.
too crowded. So that's my suggestion, that we ask Ron and the group to, again, meet with the owners with a full diagram of how they're going to get traffic in and out with the minimum of intrusion into Pensacola, Roanoke, and South Shore.
So you're making a motion to reopen the public hearing and continuing it till next month?
Right.
Okay. All right, so,
Condition that they would also meet with the neighbors. You know, if you don't communicate, it ain't gonna do any good.
I agree.
I will bring up one thing that's important to you. The proposal before you is conditional zoning to allow them to do anything that they have not eliminated from that zone. You're now asking for a specific site plan, which is not something that they have actually provided. So what we're talking about, the hearing tonight has to be on what has been proposed, unless they come back with a different plan than what you have before you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney.
So what is your solution to accomplish that?
There is no solution. What you have before you tonight
That's right.
is what you have before you tonight.
That's right.
It is a conditional request because they have eliminated things from the list of things they could do if it were not conditional. But what you have before you is they can do anything that is remaining on that list, and how they do it is entirely up to them.
So with the
What you want is what you want, but what you got is what you got.
So the picture that Mr. Carlifer presented a while ago with that buffer around it, that's the issue that's on the table tonight. He's gonna put that buffer around that property, and they're gonna come down Pensacola, Roanoke Avenue, and they're gonna access the marina property.
You do, I think.
Yes.
Please.
You still for it, Mr. Cullen?
Yeah.
Yeah, please put that picture, the one that you, because I don't have it. I don't have that picture.
Just
The
for
one-
clarity, that's what our ordinance requires unless it's modified.
Yes, sir. But I don't
That-
have,
Where's the clicker at? I'm okay.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. Into the new.
And Mr. Culliver, if you
Can
can
you put
repeat,
that picture,
if you can repeat that for the record so we have it.
Yes.
yeah, can you put that picture back up there, Sandy?
She's going there.
Yep.
Right there.
Okay.
All right, so the access on Pensacola is proposed. The green there is actually a landscape strip, not a buffer. There is a note on there that says the driveway is proposed, and that would break that buffer up wherever the driveway ends up being planned.
Yes, sir.
Can you draw that somehow?
Yes, sir. I mean, I think if
It's already
that's
there.
what helps solve the confusion, you know, developing a parking plan, a circulation plan. I'm looking for my client. We can do that? Yes, my client's saying.
Well, where's the entryway?
Should be on the right.
To be determined, I think.
Yeah, it was to be determined with a plan that has not been developed, and what you're asking is to develop that plan.
And you can do that.
We can do that.
Why don't we do it?
I think the question becomes is, can we continue this and provide that? Or do we got to go all the way back to the beginning, which is what kept us here for 3 months already?
I'm going to ask the planning director if she has a shortcut, but I don't know what that shortcut would be, because now we're taking to a specific plan from options.
It's a conditional zoning sketch, conditional zoning plan being modified as requested by the council.
That's exactly right. It's a conditional use, and we can set conditions with that conditional use at this council. I mean,
You can.
I feel like we've always done that before.
Yep.
And we can certainly table it and put those conditions and see if the applicant will agree to them and come back at the next council meeting.
I believe you can do that.
Okay.
And we're willing to do that.
Okay, all right.
Well, then I will make the motion that we table this with the conditions that we've set to see if the applicant will agree and bring them back at the next council meeting. I'll make that in the form of a motion.
I'm going to ask the question that we asked before, and that is, do you want to have more of a hearing, or are you through with the hearings, you just want to see the plan?
I think we need to have a hearing in case someone wants to speak. I would agree to continue the public hearing, so that way, when they bring the changes back, if the applicant agrees, when they bring them back, that gives the adjoining property owners an opportunity to speak.
Well, like you did before, the motion should be to reopen the hearing and continue it to the next meeting, at which time you'll get a presentation from the applicant about what their plan is.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we reopen the public hearing.
Okay, motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Baloo, seconded by Councilmember Harvey
May I
Walker.
ask for an amendment?
Yes, sir.
I love the idea that we're gonna postpone it. We're gonna come back. I would only ask that we amend the motion to stipulate that in the interim, they meet with the surrounding property owners they've already met with and go over the diagram. So they've had time to absorb it. And then we come to a meeting and don't have that many questions because they should have communicated to each other, neighbors and owners.
I don't have a problem.
Are you okay with that, Harvey? I mean,
Yes.
So now there's a motion to amend.
The motion.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of whether the motion that was made was to reopen the hearing.
Now-
Nobody has continued it, but I was gonna put it all into one motion.
Okay.
That is to reopen the hearing, continue it to the next meeting, and in the meantime, instruct the developer to have a meeting with the folks that are affected.
Yes,
and
sir.
Let them decide. All right.
So moved.
You restate.
Is that all right with you, Harvey?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Baloo, seconded by Councilmember Harvey Walker. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, hearing no discussion, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous. So that public hearing is now reopened until our September 8th council meeting of the rezoning of 202 Pensacola Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ron.
Item number 4D, rezoning a portion of 101 and 105 Gloria Down Road and 4 adjacent unaddressed parcels. Sandy.
The Cullifer Group, on behalf of Bridges Park 1 LLC, requests rezoning of a 19.34 acre portion of 6 tracts from highway commercial and industrial to PD plan development. The request includes approval of a sketch development plan for a maximum of 310 dwelling units. The applicant also requests a future land use map amendment from industrial and commercial corridor to mixed-use center. That amendment is relevant to this rezoning presentation, but will be formally considered under item 4E, should the council approve the item. The aerial shows the project area near the intersection of Gloria Dawn Road and Bridges Street Extension. The 6 tracts contain approximately 23.3 acres in total. 19 acres are proposed for the planned development, as shown in the hatched blue. The survey delineates the portion proposed for PD zoning. Approximately 4 acres, shown in yellow, would remain in the highway commercial district. The project is partly within the corporate limits and partly within the city's ETJ, and the applicant has agreed to annex the remaining ETJ portion as a condition of approval. The 5 parcels nearest Gloria Dawn Road are currently zoned highway commercial, and the larger tract set back from the road is zoned industrial. The surrounding area contains a mix of commercial, industrial, office, residential, and manufactured home development. The property is located within the Northwest Neighborhood Planning Area, and the current future land use map identifies the project area as industrial and commercial corridor. The applicant has requested the area be redesignated as mixed-use center. Any amendment will be formally considered under item 4E if the rezoning request is approved. These are the allowable uses permitted in special in the highway commercial district. And this is all in your agenda packet. And the table shows the uses currently available under the industrial designation. For this project, the proposed uses would be limited to multifamily dwellings, 2-family dwellings, accessory uses and amenities, and signage. This is the sketch development plan. The proposal contains a maximum of 310 units at a density of approximately 16 units per acre. The plan provides 3.63 acres of open space, exceeding the 3.56 acres required, and provides the required 670 parking spaces. A public street is proposed from Gloria Dawn Road to the development entrance. Internal drives would be private. The rear connection adjoining the Creek Fever subdivision to the west is proposed to remain locked and available only for emergency access. Staff proposed and the applicant agreed to a condition requiring a traffic impact analysis with the site development master plan. The TIA would evaluate the project's anticipated traffic and its effects on access points, nearby roads, and intersections, and identify any improvements recommended through the subsequent review process. This is the first of 4 phases in the plan development process. Rezoning and sketch development plan, that's the phase we're at currently. Site development master plan, should this phase be approved, is next, and then preliminary and final plat. Sketch plan establishes the general development pattern. Detailed engineering and final compliance review occur later in the process. If the rezoning and sketch plan are approved, the applicant must obtain the additional state, federal, and local permits shown on the screen during subsequent review. These include stormwater erosion and sedimentation control, wetlands and water quality approvals, NCDOT access approval, and water and sewer extension approvals. The applicant has preliminarily agreed to 6 conditions shown on the screen. In summary, they limit the permitted uses and amenities, cap the development at 310 units, require a compliant lighting plan, require wastewater system capacity improvements identified by public services, require annexation of the remaining ETJ area, and require submission of a traffic impact analysis with the site development master plan. The hearing was advertised, abutting property owners were notified, and the site was posted in accordance with applicable requirements. And no public inquiries were received by planning staff. No one spoke in opposition to the item during the planning board meeting. Planning board voted unanimously to recommend approval of the rezoning and the sketch development plan subject to the 6 conditions on the previous screen and adopted resolution 2026-0007. The planning board also recommended approval of an associated future land use map amendment, which council may consider under item E. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Sandy. Does the council have any questions for Sandy?
No, this time.
Okay, thank you. Public hearing is now open. there anyone out in the audience who wants to get up and speak in favor of this rezoning or in opposition? Yes, sir. State your name and address.
Good evening, council. My name is Chase Cullifer, project manager with the Cullifer Group. I'm located at 151A NC Highway 24 in Morehead City. Here on behalf of my client, and I just wanted to illustrate that there's a mix of uses in this here development. We have townhomes, we have what's called a carriage house where there's garages underneath and then living units on top. And then we have 4-story apartment complex buildings. These 4-story buildings will have elevators, which is a rare product here in the apartment community in Morehead City. There were conditions, as Sandy just listed before, about the capacity of improvements to the wastewater system, which I think we're working towards currently. And the TIA, which I know is kind of a big deal as far as the traffic at Gloria Dawn. I mean, I live here, I know that traffic can be dense at Gloria Dawn during certain times of the day. We originally, before submitting to the town or city, actually reached out to DOT and submitted this very plan, just in anticipation of what they may or may not want to see. And while it wasn't an official application, they did say that a TIA would be warranted on their behalf as well, and that they would anticipate some significant improvements in that area. When he lists it out, it would be a high probability of roadway improvements consisting of left and right turn lanes, median islands, and restricted movement driveways. This would be a proactive measure in preparation for the current additional traffic in this area, and it would pretty much be a complete road widening with dedicated center turn lane going left, north, off of Bridges Street, and then a dedicated right turn lane coming south down Gloria Dawn, accessing the property. I believe one of the other major issues that came up was this going from an industrial property to a mixed-use center land classification. And I know that there's parts of the city that probably have a desire for more industry, but there's also a big need for housing. And there's 310 units of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom mixed in this at different price points. It would be market rate, but with the buildings being 4 stories, they call it verticality. I don't know if that's a real word, but it allows a lower construction cost per unit by going up to 4 floors as opposed to 2 or 3. And we also are kind of looking at this area in general as it's kind of in the development community, it's understood that industry and business will kind of follow behind residential development. And we kind of see this as an opportunity to provide more workforce housing that's adjacent to some industry. It is kind of located on a corner of the industrious area in a manner that's not centrally located. It's closer to commercial and schools and parks and other public resources. And I think it would be a good transition between the neighborhoods and then into that light industrial stuff that's there, that's kind of visible from the intersection of 70 and Highway 24 now. I'd be willing to answer any questions.
I have a question, Mayor. Yes. Chase, can you repeat again what the DOT, I heard you say, widening of Gloria Dawn?
So,
and you also said a turn-in lane on Gloria Dawn? Can you repeat what you said?
Yes, sir. So the specific response from Dwayne Smith with DOT was a high probability of roadway improvement will be required up to but not limited to left and right turn lanes, median islands, restricted movement driveways, etc. And so if you were coming west on Bridges Street Extension and you wanted to turn right or north onto Gloria Dawn and then make a left into this project, there would be a center turn lane that is dedicated to that, kind of like if you were going to Friendly Market off of Friendly Road from Bridges Street.
So if you're going west, then you're going to turn on Gloria Dawn, and then you're going to have a center turn lane to go in this project.
To prevent from queuing of traffic backing out into Bridges Street, yes, sir.
Okay.
How wide?
Was there anything else besides?
Well, it was an unofficial response because we hadn't actually applied. And with this being the sketch process and it being a condition from the city and from DOT, we're hoping to be able to move forward from a sketch review with approval from you today, and then pursue those answers.
Excuse me, they're saying that they're seeing this as what you may need to have done. They haven't committed to doing it, right?
My client has committed to doing whatever is required by the city and NCDOT. They're aware that there would be significant infrastructure improvements, and they're willing to pay for it.
Okay, now my question is, I use that road quite often. How far are you gonna be off of Bridges Street for you all to turn left? Because you're saying you're gonna have a lane that you're gonna be able to turn in.
And, I mean, I didn't measure it, but I believe it's a couple hundred feet. But a typical queuing would be like a 50 to 100-foot storage lane, and then like a 50 to 100-foot taper.
So you're saying about 100 feet, I'm looking at that entrance right there.
Councilman Walker, speaking to the mic.
You're saying that it's 100 feet from your entrance, which I think that entrance is where you got, that's colored in blue, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So you're saying that's about 100 feet from Bridges Street?
I believe it's further than that. I believe that the improvement for stacking of cars would be at least 100 feet.
So you're gonna, but you're stacking.
Wayne Drive is right there. When I turn that corner, I'm almost at Wayne Drive. So you're saying you're this side of Wayne Drive. So I'm saying for you to, so you're saying when we make that turn off of Bridges, you're gonna have another lane. In other words, they're gonna widen Gloria Dawn.
They would widen it 2 lanes worth. And so you would have the center turn lane, so it would be a through lane going north, a dedicated left turn lane in the middle, a through lane going south, and then a dedicated turn lane going south right. So it would double the width of the road and have queuing and tapers suitable to what the TIA results say.
Okay, so DOT has not committed to doing this. This is something that they have to do, or do you do?
We would do it if they require it. So they would take the TIA, they would make their recommendations, and then they would say, if you want to get a driveway permit, these are the improvements you have to make.
Okay,
and our client's responsible.
So you're saying it's gonna be 300 units, 600 parking spaces, because you're anticipating 600 cars?
That's the ordinance requirements.
Okay.
I understand it's tight, but we're trying to get through sketch plan. I think if we could humbly request your approval tonight, we would be able to move forward and get that information, and we'd be able to come back to you guys in the future with what DOT recommends.
So go, are you through with Councilman Walker? Can I ask?
Yeah.
So you're saying 4 lanes. It's 2 lanes now.
Right.
So we're gonna go 4 lanes.
Correct.
Is what preliminary, because
Correct.
you're here. So when you're coming west,
Mm-hmm.
you can continue going on Gloria Dawn. There's a continuous road going, lane.
Without impediment.
Without, okay. And then you've got a lane that's gonna be designated to turn in this project.
Specifically for this project,
All right.
not all the way through, just
All the way through.
dedicated.
And then, if you're going south,
Mhm.
you've got a designated turning lane that will be going west.
Yes.
And then you've got a designated lane that will be straight if you're going either way.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Councilman Taylor, did you have a question?
Well, we have to remember that in order for the DOT to do the design engineering for what Chase is describing, we need to make a decision to pass this project, to take it to the next step. So if we, number one, think that we need housing in our community, and we need to offer a variety housing at different price points, this is an opportunity to add 300 units. That's a big project. In addition, we have talked about, we would love the opportunity to gain more citizens and reduce the property rate for all of Morehead. Picking up 300 folks at one time at a substantial increase in property tax rolls, this is an opportunity to do that.
Yeah. So you say the advantages are to add to workforce housing that's needed in Morehead City and to increase the tax base.
But to get it started, it has to pass step one. Correct me if I'm wrong, this is step one.
Mayor, I'm just gonna say, you guys are getting in an awful lot of discussion. We're still in the public hearing.
And we might want to finish the public hearing.
Oh,
before we-
yeah.
I mean, everything you just said was absolutely correct and intelligent, but we're still in the public hearing, collect the information, and then get into your.
Because I have anybody else have any questions for Chase? I got a couple of more questions. Sure. Chase, you understand it. You know, the traffic backs up.
Yes, sir.
There's no way for it to get on Bridge Street. I've been there, I use the road a lot. I mean, I've seen 8 or 10 cars backed up there. I see concrete trucks backed up there,
Right.
rock trucks. So is there any discussion with DOT of how we're going to get the traffic moving and to be able to get them on Bridge Street?
So I don't want to speculate that that could trigger further DOT involvement on Bridges Street extension, but it is a possibility where something like this creates where they would look into alternative things in the general area. But the TIA would be kind of the starting point for that.
Is there a possibility of diverting traffic to keep it from going to Bridges Street extension to a different direction?
I mean, there is a possibility where it gets, cycled in a different way. I mean, if it goes to Gloria Dawn to Business Drive, or
Yes.
if it goes up and turns around. I mean, we all know that the Business Drive extension, has been in discussion for some time, but there's no current plan for it. But, things like this would drive what those results would be.
Right. I mean, I understand we need this project, and I'm not against this project. I want this project to happen, but I do understand, and I think you understand, the problem that we're going to create here, and we've got a problem with traffic. And whether it's directional, of getting traffic to go a different direction, but if you've got 8 or 10 cars that are backed up on Gloria Dawn, and they cannot get out of Bridges Street, and you've got them backed in your project, we got a problem.
I understand.
And there's got to be some kind of discussion of either diverting traffic to go a different direction, or how we're going to get the traffic that's already on Gloria Dawn, and then the traffic that's going to be generated by 600 vehicles, how we're going to get them on Bridges Street. That has been my concern since I've seen this project. And I understand that we've got to approve this to get DOT moving on it, but I'm very concerned with how DOT is going to respond to us.
One more quick question for you. Have they talked to you about traffic lights or anything like that?
No, sir. Again, I requested a preliminary review of what they thought would happen, and their response was substantial improvements that I listed before.
Yeah, I think Mr. Blue brought up a good point, because at any time of day, coming up with Gloria Dawn, you're sitting there maybe 5 or 10 minutes waiting for you to merge onto Bridges Street. What you're saying now, you're gonna put potentially 600 cars there, and they're gonna be trying to merge onto Bridges Street. I'm just saying, I like the project, but please don't underestimate the congestion that can be generated at that intersection.
It's a busy intersection. My office is on 24. My daughter goes Morehead Middle. I drive past it every morning at rush hour. So I'm aware, and I'd be interested to see what the results are and what the potential solution.
The thing we need to remember is that we have talked about Bridges Street extension for what seems like 10 years, for a long, long time.
You got another question for him? Because we can talk about that when y'all do y'all discussion. We got to move on in the public hearing.
Yeah, we're still in public.
If you don't interrupt me, I'll try to do that. Can you do that? When you get this project built, you are increasing the probability because they can see more traffic's being added. They've got to make the decisions that they haven't made yet to pull Bridges Street forward in the construction plan. That's another reason we need this project. It's gonna help us put additional emphasis in getting Bridges Street approval and getting the intersections coming down Bridges Street revamped. So now, I'll shut up.
Are you finished?
We done lost somebody.
Thank you, Chase.
Yes, sir, you're welcome.
Yeah, is there anybody else in the audience that wants to get up and speak in favor or in opposition? Yes, sir. You state your name and address.
Scott Maddox, 5101 Business Drive. I'm not for or against, but if y'all seen the proposal for the Bridge Street extension, it goes right through this property. And I was just concerned about what would be the redirection or whatever if this is developed. But I'm not for or against it. Just that's the only concern I have is how the project can be done, the extension can be done if it's supposed to go through this property.
I didn't hear what you, so, okay, now I think I understand. I didn't hear what you first said. That's one of the diagrams that DOT put out
Yes.
about a potential area.
Right.
And I think all those business owners out there realize that at some point, their property's gonna be touched.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
I
it's just
hear you.
if we've taken this into concern, that's only the question.
But if
Thank you.
if that building gets built first, DOT is required to accommodate it. And it's up to them, it's up to them to go around it or whatever, to make accommodations.
All right. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak in favor or in opposition of this rezoning request? Okay, sir, state your name and address.
My name is Ralph Nitt, 5010 Business Drive in Morehead City. I've had property back at the industrial park for quite a few years, watched a lot of development that has happened in and around our area, which I'll call the industrial park, our area, for the sake of this conversation. I've seen the Bridges Street extension be put in. I've seen probably one of the worst intersections I've ever seen the DOT create at Highway 24 and 70 and Bridges Street extension. It's just dangerous. Traffic cutoff shortcuts, that's what Bridges Street extension has really become. I'm all for development, don't get me wrong, but it's a dangerous road. You know, if there's a lot of kids on bicycles that are out riding on Glory at Dawn, they might be on Business Drive. I just hate to see fatalities, anyone get hurt, just for the sake of developing a piece of property to put homes in. I think homes are needed in Morehead City, and land is definitely scarce. They're not making any more of it. But I know back before the port even bought that property, it was laid out for a subdivision many, many years ago. The roads were cut, power lines were put in, phone boxes were added, and then that was abandoned to accommodate the port for future use, which didn't happen. And I guess it was sold off and broken up into pieces. It would be really interesting to see what they would do with the Bridges Street extension, and how that would accommodate the whole area, because ingress and egress is never fun. The reason I was late for tonight's meeting is because I had to pull out of there, and that's the reason I leave 15 or 20 minutes early when I leave my shop to go anywhere. So I guess a minimum of 315 units, you know, with
the cars and people that are in them. I say safety first. And, but just wanted to share my comments and thoughts about what I see every day and what I continue to see. Hopefully it'll be some good decisions made for the benefit of Morehead City. And I appreciate my 3-minute time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All righty.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else?
Do I need to sign that? Okay.
Okay. So seeing or hearing no one else, public hearing is now closed. Council.
Remember that?
Well, I was just gonna make one comment that, and I'm not, it's not gonna be a long comment. It could be what, Mr. Culliford was talking about with the state, the DOT. That may get them, and I think Bill alluded to this, about the Bridges Street extension, is that they may say, wow, maybe we need to look at where is the best entrance for that. I don't know, but at least I think I think the conversation's gonna start. And, it seems like that the developer is obviously is willing to do what it takes. And I've traveled that road many a time too, but, I just understand it is what it is, and if I feel like I needed to go east, sometimes I go west to go east, because I can, there's different ways of getting where you need to get.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say. Now, if anybody else has anything to say, I'm ready.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask either the manager or the attorney a question?
Yes.
Do we have any input with DOT when they come back as far as traffic patterns or what they're recommending? Do we have any influence?
On state roads, the state obviously has the final say,
I
but
know,
they
but-
typically want and desire local input whenever development and redevelopment and traffic patterns are revisited through the normal processes. Yes, I think we'll have input. Whether we are effective in that enough to make a difference, we'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah.
But yes.
I mean, I like the
nice.
project. I know we need the housing. I just don't, I just think if DOT does not come in and do some significant changes to that intersection and that traffic pattern, that we're putting people in jeopardy.
Well,
Their
I
safety.
would tend to agree that one thing I would say is, look, this project, put it out of your mind for a moment.
Yes, sir.
That area needs addressing.
Thank you.
It doesn't have anything to
Right
do with this
to this
project.
day.
Because this project can be commercial, industrial tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
With permits, and they go to work, and we would see a substantial increase in traffic that's going to exacerbate the existing conditions,
Yes.
make it worse,
Yes, sir.
particularly if it's more truck traffic, not to pick on trucks, but we want economic development. But the reality is, any development that occurs on Business Drive that's going east is primarily going to come this route. And that needs addressing regardless of this rezoning. So, but this rezoning could be commercial, and I think it could be developed and substantially impact the same things, and it should be addressed through a traffic impact study, which might not be required by DOT for a driveway permit there for a commercial. We don't know, because that is a different process. It's not a rezoning, because it's already zoned unless they want to change something. But I do think there's opportunities for us to revisit that area with DOT, but it would help us to have this project on the table, to get them to the table and focus on it, because it's going to be impactful, as several of the commissioners have pointed out. Of course, that's not going to happen overnight. It would be likely a phased development based on market conditions and demand for the housing. But assuming it was, you're talking about a few years before it would be built out, which gives us ample opportunity to work with DOT to look at this end of future Bridges Street extension, whatever you call it, needs to be addressed now, not 10 years from now, in terms of planning for the traffic patterns going towards Gloria Dawn, Vashti, Riggs, Wayne, all of those streets, even Country Club Road to some extent, need to be revisited. And even if we don't have immediate plans, as we don't with DOT for the future Bridges Street extension, we can have a plan for this area, and DOT could begin to consider funding that would address the traffic issues in there long before that final project gets built. But it could be built in a way that would accommodate the future. So I think that's a high priority for the city to work with DOT to get done. And this project helps bring them to the table in a more immediate fashion. So I would advocate that we make that a priority for the city. I know from an administrative standpoint, I've already looking at the plans that were developed previously. They're helpful, but they would have to be revisited because, as one gentleman pointed out, this changes at least one of the options. But I'm not sure that an option that extends it along the railroad right-of-way in similar fashion to the existing Bridges Street extension is in long-term best interest of Morehead City. I think something further north opens up more property for development and access, and it allows us to preserve some properties along the railroad right-of-way for industrial development that might need rail access. If you put a road through there, you're going to eliminate that. So I think that's worthy of consideration, and we need to present that to DOT and others, and the economic development folks need to look at it. But right now, we need to focus on this end of the access and this project. Certainly, I think there are options that could eliminate part of the congestion there if we can work with DOT to get them built.
And that's what I hope, Mr. Martin. You know, and I know there's probably some property owners would not like to see it happen, but like you just said, I mean, DOT created this when they designed Bridges Street Extension, and then you've got Wayne Drive, Riggs Road, Vashti. I mean, there's a lot that could be done. Maybe DOT could look at it, and maybe, because again, there's got to be some different directional traffic patterns. If this project, they cannot dump that traffic on Bridges Street Extension. They can't get out. They're going to back traffic up. There's got to be a different direction for traffic.
Yeah, and I think it's reasonable for the DOT to require within their permitting for this particular proposed development, things like Chase just described, the multi-lanes, whatever, but that's not the long-term fix-all for the whole area. And obviously, this developer and this parcel shouldn't bear the burden for the whole area.
Yes.
The whole area needs to be addressed in a grander fashion with DOT and the city working together.
Yes.
So is there a motion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2026-013 to rezone a portion of 101 and 105 Gloria Dawn Road and 4 adjacent unaddressed parcels. And I'm gonna forego reading those tax pin numbers from Commercial Highway District and Industrial District to Planned Development District, and Resolution 2026-R49 of Plan Consistency in accordance with North Carolina General Statutes 160D-604 for map amendment.
I'd second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Abel, seconded by Councilmember Taylor. Any discussion on this motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Councilmember Walker.
I'll let you go first.
I'm torn because basically
Speaking to the mic.
I travel that road. When I look at this layout, if those people would try right now the way it is, and Randy, I heard what you're saying, that the problem is there right now, those people would not even be able to leave. If they were trying to be to work at 8 o'clock, it ain't happening. if you got 300 people in there trying to get out the way it is not going to happen. And so I'm sitting here saying, how do we fix that? Because that's where I'm torn. Because I want to develop it, but I'm sitting here saying, how do we fix it? Are we going to set ourselves up for a situation that is not going to be fixable? Because right now, as I say, I'm sitting here envisioning 300 units, 600 cars, and that section where he's saying 100 feet, or a little over 100 feet, he's going to put a lane. Those people who are in the department may not even be able to get get out of the parking lot, because. So this is where I'm torn.
And I understand that.
Okay.
But
And
you
so-
got to give them the.
But that's why I feel I'm going to have to vote with it.
Yeah.
Because
I think they're going.
it's not their fault that this situation is there. But at the same time, we as a city need to sit here and realize that we need to move forward to prevent this problem, because this is a serious situation. Because, you know, like Mr. Nitz had just previously said, trying to get out of Gloria Dawn, you're sitting there waiting for the people that come across 24, and then you try to get ahead of people that's coming out of Country Club. And there's no light. And so it's just like, so the way they're beating it, people are pulling out there and running in the middle lane to try to get out there so the next guy will be able to come and make a right-hand turn. So I'm just saying, when this thing is presented, please do not underestimate that intersection.
Oh, it could be, Harvey, Mr. Walker, it could be Red Barn Road out on Highway 24. I believe that's the road. That, you know where I'm talking about, out towards Bogue. I believe it's Red Barn, where the, anyhow, when you come out of that, you can only turn right. You can only turn right, period. If you want to go back to the left, and you got to travel down
Yeah, they got a
about
silver
a quarter of
street.
a mile and then make a U-turn. That's where those bump outs are at.
Might have to be there.
The same way going in, you just can't turn into Red Barn Road. You got to go down about a block to make a turn to get in there. You know, there could be something like that. Who knows? But unless it happens, DOT's not going to work with it.
And
you know.
and that's where I'm at. I'm
Yeah.
the same way, Councilman Abel.
And I think
I'm
they'll
torn.
work it out.
I'm torn. When I saw the project, I just couldn't imagine of developing this property with additional. I couldn't
Well, we
imagine
all
it, but
know the 300 cars ain't going to come out at the same time.
I understand.
We all know that.
But again, if it takes a project like this to get DOT to the table, and I hear Mr. Martin, and I've heard Sandy, if it takes this project to get them to the table, to see what we can do to make the whole area better, then I'm going to support it. But everybody here tonight has heard my concerns. I think Councilman Walker's concerns, everyone's concerned. I think Chase has heard our concerns. The developer has heard. Everyone has heard our concerns, and if it takes approving this project to get DOT to the table to make the improvements, because again, there is a problem now that needs to be addressed. The problem, we don't have to wait for the problem is there.
Yeah.
And Mr. Martin, you know that. So hopefully DOT will come to the table and work with the developer and work with the city, and we can improve the whole area. That is my prayer, that it'll happen.
One more question. When they do a traffic study, what will that do? What will a traffic study do?
Well, this traffic impact analysis,
Right, yeah, traffic.
Chase can give us the formula of how they do that, but I'm sure they're going to run scenarios based on typical traffic for these, how much this will add to the current situation. They'll analyze the traffic patterns and the counts currently, and then project what the new development would add to it. So those would be some of the elements. But I think that, as was pointed out, DOT's already recognized that substantial improvements are needed now, well, they didn't say that, but substantial improvements, additional improvements will be necessary as a result of this development. The other part of it, though, just to expand on it, DOT doesn't typically, in my experience, act until they typically react. They don't take the initiative to do things that might be a need. They're going to do it after it is a need. And I think traffic counts and all of that will increase the likelihood of DOT paying attention more so than maybe they have. I think they're aware of some of the things, but unless you have something on the table that's going to show them new numbers that are going to increase the problem, the roads are designed to handle its current traffic. It's just the way it's configured and all the different movements. They've learned from it over the years with Bridges Street Extension. So I think that's some of the elements that'll be included, and probably a lot more.
So can I ask one more? So, Mr. Martin, who drives this boat? Do we does the developer, or do we get involved with this as a city?
I think both.
Both.
Yeah.
So we'll work in tandem.
Developer will work on what's required to get a permit and what's tied to their project. But obviously, they're interested in this because if it's an unsafe, not a good situation, and it's negative, they're going to have a hard time marketing this property to residents. It's going to be an adverse impact. So I think they're just as interested in a resolution. And it could be other resolutions we can certainly explore, but until they have the zoning, I understand their hesitancy to invest additional dollars in planning for it, and they may not get it. As Sandy pointed out, though, this is not the final action. This is the first step of a multi-phase because of the planned development, as you're well aware of. That's going to take a while, and
Yes.
and so it gives us a window of opportunity to work with DOT. But I think we need to initiate the discussion on the connectivity and access of that whole area, independent of their effort, but use their effort as a catalyst, if you will, to get DOT to take it serious.
And I hope we will, Mr. Martin.
Well, I intend to, and Sandy and I have talked about that.
Thank you.
And I've talked to Bill, who's chair of the county planning transportation committee. It could be that we bring it to them, whether there's other pots of money in DOT that could work on traffic safety issues in this area, short of the impacts of this development.
Okay, thank you.
All right, there's a motion on the floor.
Yes, there is.
Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor with this motion indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous. All right, item 4E, land use plan for Radio Island and Gloria Don Road. Sandy.
A lot in that one. Okay. And this final item is the land use plan amendments. As a result of annexing an additional area into our city limits, you can see currently the area is not shown on our neighborhood planning area map over on Radio Island, but it's now in the city. And so the planning board recommended that it come into the east neighborhood planning area, and that is consistent with the rest of our jurisdiction over on Radio Island. In addition to that, then we've got the future land use map, and Radio Island is all identified as port mixed use, and so the proposal is to bring it into the city's land use plan as port mixed use on the future land use map. And finally, the Gloria Don Road piece that was just rezoned, that would come into the, wow, what is the designation that we're proposing? There we go. Mixed-use center from commercial corridor and industrial. So as proposed mixed-use center, the planning board also made that recommendation along with its planning board resolution. And that's the land use plan amendments.
All right, thank you, Sandy. Does the council have any questions for Sandy? Okay, public hearing is now open. Is there anyone out in the audience that wants to get up and speak in favor or in opposition of this? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Eric Remington again, representing the condo associations. I think because thank you all for continuing the earlier rezoning request, but I think because that rezoning request has been continued, we would ask that you pull out the Radio Island part of this and not do that tonight, but put that off also until the 30 days out, till your next meeting. For consistency purposes, because these maps depend on the underlying zoning. If you look at the maps that Ms. Watkins just put up, it says that it's going to commercial marine district, and that's not happening tonight. So to approve these would be incorrect, I think. So we'd ask you to continue that till the next meeting also. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
Ralph Nidd, 5010 Business Drive, Morehead City. Could I just make a comment about the public notice portion of the property, going back to the planning of it? Or am I too late to ask or say something about that?
No, go ahead.
Planning of what?
Well, regarding the public notice postings of contiguous property owners and putting a sign up and advertising in the paper, to me, it seems like it's not an island, but it is an island.
Yeah, I'm just saying, would that be better during citizens' comment to address, because
I don't want to get out of turn.
Yeah, this got to be specific to the item we're covering with the land use plan.
So
yeah.
Not regarding the...
Yeah, you can speak about that during public comment, but your comments have to be specific to the item we're on right now. And that is the adopting the land use plan for Radio Island and Gloria Dawn Road.
No, this was regarding actually the public notification.
Yeah,
portion of it.
you can speak about that during public comments or citizen
So
comment.
it'll be coming up.
It's an island. But
It'll be coming
Yeah,
up, Ralph.
yeah, I'll call you up when we get that to that section.
Okay.
Section of the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else? Okay. Hearing no one, public hearing is now closed. Council.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney, Mr. Taylor, do we or don't we?
Well, that's your determination, but nevertheless, I would suggest that you have Sandy come back up and describe to you whether there is a problem with incorporating what you're going to be dealing with later in the land use plan, which is what we're talking about. Anyway, she and I have talked about it. I don't believe you have a problem with doing this, because the other thing will be an entirely different issue.
So we can do either, we can either with, not take that forward, or we can go ahead and take it forward. If the council decides to initially zone to something other than commercial marina, then we just need to evaluate whether that's consistent with the port mixed use future land use designation. The neighborhood planning area really is about the location in the town, and so that is just, the east. It's the most easternmost neighborhood planning area we have, so that probably makes sense to be east. If for some reason, whatever designation the council, adopts for the property in question is not consistent with port mixed use, then it could be evaluated and something else could be proposed. In addition to that, we can always bring forward a land use plan amendment subsequent to that. So, in other words, it's up to you. But we can accommodate
currently,
either.
Sandy, though, I think you said that the whole area there is under that same land use.
Yes,
plan.
sir. You can see on the
And
map
this
there.
would not obligate, I'll say to the attorney or Sandy, to our attorney, this would not obligate the council on the zoning action that's subsequently going to occur.
But for consistency, I think it would be safe for us, my opinion, I think it would be safe for us to take it out, and then that way we'd just deal with it at a different time.
Well, you're required to do it, and I don't see the connection, though. If you do this, that does not obligate your action on zoning, if I understand it correctly. But you still have the full range of options that you have on the
Yeah.
continued public hearing. They're two separate matters, because everything needs to be within the land use plan. And in good conscience, I don't think the staff would recommend any other category, because that would be inconsistent with the rest of the property over there being currently one category.
Yeah.
And what I'm gonna say is, if it turns out that when you rezone it, it doesn't fit, you fix it then.
Yeah.
So this is not setting it in the concrete forever and ever. In fact, the folks at CAMA are gonna have to go through whatever we change in the land use plan. So if anything is directly affecting what their decision might be, then we'll run it through with that as well.
And it goes through as a separate amendment through CAMA's process through Coastal Resources Commission. If we can keep it together, procedurally, that's, from an administrative perspective, that is helpful. Most counties in North Carolina, when you amend your zoning map, your future land use map is automatically amended. Because we're a CAMA community, we have an extra step to go through to work with the CAMA, the DCM folks, so.
Essentially what I'm saying, and what Sandy is saying, you are not prejudiced to determine whatever you determine in the future, and we'll fix the land use plan accordingly if it needs to be done. It may not be the kind of development that is currently in front of you, and if that happens, then we'll fix this part of it. But this part gets it into where it needs to be in our land use plan, and that is, something's gonna go in there. Right now, that's what it is, but it can be anything that you guys decide. And the neighborhood's gonna be the neighborhood. I mean, it doesn't really matter what we do in that specific parcel. The whole district area is what we're defining with the land use plan.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Is there a motion on the floor?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make that motion, that we go ahead and adopt resolution 2026 R51 to add 191 and 195 Morgan Street and 201 Marine Drive into the Port Mixed Land Future Use Classification in the East Neighborhood Planning Area on the Future Land Use and Neighborhood Planning Area maps, and to redesignate a 19.34 acre portion of 101 and 105 Gloria Dawn Road and 4 adjacent undressed parcels from industrial and commercial corridor future land use classifications into the mixed use center classification.
Thank you, Councilman Abel. Motion made by Councilmember Abel. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Councilmember Nathan Chambers. Any discussion on this motion? All right, hearing no discussion, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous. So, moving on to new business, item 5A, adopt resolution 2026-R-44, approving a credit toward the license agreement 2026 baseball season for Riverfront Sports and Entertainment LLC. Mr. Randy.
I can elaborate. I think the resolution speaks for itself. I'll be glad to answer any questions, but I think this is justifiable, and the management is recommending this credit be approved as recommended for the most recently completed season due to the project implications that we had that negatively affected operations and related revenue opportunities as stipulated, and the construction continues, and so the credit in the amount of $13,579.50 is the recommendation. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions?
This was discussed at our Finance and Administration Committee meeting, and I think it received favorable recommendation from our committee. I'll make a motion, and then we can have any further discussion. Mr. Mayor, I adopt the resolution 2026 R44, approving a credit toward the license agreement baseball season, or the 2026 baseball season for Riverfront Sports and Entertainment LLC.
Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Baloo, seconded by Councilmember Harvey Walker. Any discussion on this motion? All right, hearing no discussion, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous.
Thank
you. Okay, item number 6, city manager's report. Mr. Randy again.
The only thing I would like to, I think they're still here, recognize Kristen, our HR director, to introduce our someone special we have in the audience tonight. If they'd come up.
Good evening, Council. This is our NC Fellow, Mr. Bray Guest. So he's going to be with us for the next 11 months working on some pretty heavy projects and learning all about local government. So I will.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good evening, Council. As was mentioned, my name is Bray Guess. I just graduated from UNC Chapel Hill in May, so my apologies if you're a State fan or a Duke fan in some crazy world.
Mr. Randy, he apologized to you.
Hey, I'm a State graduate too. Yeah, as mentioned, I'm going to be working on a variety of projects around our policies, capital improvement plan, and updating our website for ADA compliance. I'm happy to be here and learn and to use all of the skills that I've learned over the past month at the School of Government to help our city and learn as much as I can about local government. So thank you for having me, and I'm ready to get to work. Thank you, Brian.
And this is done through a fellowship program with the School of Government and the university, and we really appreciate. And AmeriCorps. Yeah, they that helps pay for it.
There you
Yes,
go.
thank you.
There you
Thank
go.
you, Jewel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jewel can answer any questions about that arrangement. I think the city's used this third fellow.
Awesome. Okay.
That's all I have.
That's all you have for your city manager's report, Mr. Randy?
Okay.
Enough's been said.
Okay. All right, item number 7, citizens' comment. So at this time, any citizen that want to get up to the podium, come up to the podium and address the city council, you have a 3-minute time limit. State your name and address again, sir.
Ralph Nitt, 5010 Business Drive, Morehead City. Regarding, I guess, what I listened to with the public notice signage, no matter where it is, I know it's normally advertised in the paper, people within a certain distance, whether they abut to it or 300 foot or whatever it might be. Radio Island is pretty small, and you would think if a boat sank at the marina, everyone in that complex would know about it before the end of the day. And how everybody didn't know about a sign being up there is just totally beyond me. And then the second thing I'd like to say is don't forget about the North Carolina Railroad regarding Bridges Street and the and Gloria Dawn, because when it comes through there, they've got the right of way.
That's exactly.
That's about it.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ralph.
All right, is there anyone else? All right, Missy, state your name and address, Missy. Good evening.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see Mama here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Oh, and you gave me that one too, my
Oh, no, you good,
favorite
Missy.
color.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I thank you all for your time and attention. I do just want to stand before you because
And Missy, can you just state your name and address?
I was getting to that. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. My name is Melissa Odom, 1412 Avery Street. I am coming before you just to give you some feedback as a citizen, a lifelong citizen. As we know that we've recently initiated the W.S. King project. I did reach out to share some input just in February the 10th. I reached out to the council and the sitting mayor at that time to request that there be more citizen engagement on the plans. At that time, I wasn't able to come. My dad, he spoke up, and at that time, it was said there was too much money that had already been invested into the project. This comes on the heels of also the eminent domain where the room was packed, and it shouldn't have to take a room to be packed to still be heard, to still be considered, to still be, to feel as though there was openness and transparency on what's going on. Same rules apply from the Ms. Hamilton and the others that have spoken today. I think the consensus is the same. I'm just here to voice concern. Mr. Harvey, if you can read number 1.
Integrity?
Yes, sir.
Microphone.
Yeah, Missy, we got 3 minutes.
I understand.
Yeah.
And they'll yield their 3 minutes.
You can't accumulate.
But it's only 3 minutes per person. That's all I'm gonna allow, Missy. Yeah.
Okay, I can read it myself.
Okay.
That is a perfect reflection of what I'm talking about, of citizen engagement. It was just a request, and so I can complete it in the time that's allowed, and I thank you. Integrity, one's moral compass, desire to do right. Character, say what we do when no one is looking. Transparency, clearly state intentions. Deception, to purposefully lead astray. Consciousness, point of reflection. Repentance, the turning away from doing wrong. Restoration, to be made new and to begin again. What keeps us from seeing these things is pride. Pride, it blocks our hearing, our eyes, and our hearts. What's the remedy? Humility. It allows you to see differently, to hear differently, and respond with love. I received a text from the mayor when I reached out to him with the concern of in some pictures, and he said, "Excuse me, what are you talking about? The whole building isn't being torn down." Speaking of preservation, we are painting the building back the same color it was originally. If you would have come to the groundbreaking ceremony, you would have known that. I want to point out that there was a Facebook post, and one of the individuals who participated in the groundbreaking says, "This makes me want to cry along with all the other homes being torn down. I had no idea they were going to tear down part of it. I got the impression that they were going to add on to it. Oh, how we were deceived." Another one said the same thing. "I thought we were adding on." Another one said, "I too had no idea that they were going to demolish it. I was under the impression that there was going to be addition, but someone knew this was the plan all along. Same thing happened with Queen Street in the past." Finally, another one said, "This makes me sad too. Why did I think they were going to add on? I know this is what I heard. Why do the people we think we can trust deceive us the most?" And I'll yield the rest of the comments. The point is, I'm asking y'all to give a point of reflection. It says, "In God we trust." In order to say that in God we trust and to do these prayers and things that we initiate and say that we're seeking God to show us, it takes love. And that's what is on that card that I gave you. Love is patient. Love is, I'm not going to read it to you. It's there for you. But we have to start operating in love so we can hear one another. When we could easily say, in pride we trust, in self we trust, in all these other things. And until the city's council and the city's officials will start listening to the people and their concerns and not to bash them or to blunder them for standing up for what they believe in and not be made to feel as though that you're reprimanded when you're voicing your concern, I think it's owed to the citizens to do a better job of that engagement that has been requested. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss. Is there anyone else?
And I will just say, on these, it was back to the basics. One last thing. That's the last thing that God had placed on my heart, is that we as a city, as a people, as a community, we have to get back to the basics. And these are the fruit of the Spirit, and love, peace, kindness, forbearance, joy, goodness, gentleness, self-control, and faithfulness. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak during citizen comment? Reverend Kurt, Mrs. Melissa, you guys can get up and speak if you want to. I want to hear from all citizens. Okay, is there anyone else? Okay, so council comments, I'll start with Councilman Harvey Walker.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to say thank you for getting up and saying some things. You know, I too thought that they were going to add on, but at some point, there's some things in that building that needs to be torn out, so that you need to know there's some asbestos and some other things that were unsafe that needed to be taken out. You know, so those are some of the reasons that we had to do what they had to do. But I think you're going to like it when it's done. But I want to thank everybody for coming. It was a very good meeting tonight. It was good discussion with the council. As I always say, if you all have a problem, feel free to call us. We're all here to help. And thank you all for coming. Good night.
Thank you, Councilman Walker. Mayor Pro Tem Baloo.
Good to see it. It's good to see everyone tonight. I think we've had a very, very good meeting. Staff, I would, Mr. Martin and Sandy, I would ask. You heard my concern tonight with the abutting property owners, and I just don't know when we got away from having a specific area designed as far as the 300 feet. Please research that for me, and please let me know when that was changed. I think that we need to add that. It's whatever, there needs to be a designated area that we put in our ordinance, and the council can, I guess, make that decision. But I just think it is very vague when we say adjoining or abutting, because it's like Mr. Martin said tonight. I mean, that could be endless in a mile. So I think there needs to be a point of reference that we contact adjoining property owners when we are rezoning or anything that's going on within their property. So if you'll research that for me. And I will not get back on my soapbox with the traffic concerns. I think Mr. Martin and Councilman Taylor have heard those concerns, and all I ask is work in tandem and side by side with this developer to see what we can do to make that I just hope that I was in favor of the project, and I hope the project will move forward, but it's sad that we have to do what we did tonight in order to get their attention and get them to the plate. But if that's what it takes, then I'm willing to do that. So please work with the developer, and let's see what we can do to improve that area. It's good to see everyone tonight, and it is always my pleasure to serve. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Baloo. Councilman Nathan Chambers.
I'm always impressed because I thoroughly research these documents before we come to a meeting and read the minutes, and I come in with somewhat of a point of view, but then continue to be impressed by the other fellow council members who are doing the same amount of research, and they come out there with their wise judgment, and it may alter my point of view or enhance my point of view, but I appreciate the fact that I'm with a group of people that are thinkers. And, lots of times you get some folks that don't really dig into it, but y'all do a great job. And also to add to that, our staff is awesome. I mean, the way they can put this stuff together and the knowledge they have, you can ask a question. I mean, good grief, you're like, Sandy, and she's just right on, And so I thank the staff because they're great. Joel, you're great. Daniel, you didn't have much to say tonight, but anyway. But thanks again, guys. Y'all do a great job.
Thank you, Councilman Chambers. Councilman Taylor.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. I'm not gonna say very much because I've already ran my mouth a lot.
No comment.
But I want you to be aware that money for street repair, street improvement is at a limit, and it takes a lot longer than you would normally think it should take. But I do appreciate it, and thank you for letting me be here to do that.
Thank you, Councilman
Richard?
Taylor. Councilman
Yeah.
Bill.
Yes, sir. Nathan, I didn't know we could call Sandy like that. So you've got a direct line to her?
I'm telling you what.
Okay. No, of course, obviously I knew that. Missy, thank you for reminding us of this, this is what we need to do day in and day out. So thank you for that. Other than that, thank everybody else for coming out. And anyhow, I guess we'll wait and see what next, September brings, right? Is that the next meeting? September. How about that? That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Abel.
Only
Okay.
30 days.
Item number 9, approve the release of closed session minutes or portions thereof as recommended by the city attorney and city manager. I passed out those documents. If you haven't reviewed it yet.
These are ones some of us have already read, okay.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
gonna pass it back to you.
Mayor, I'll make a,
So,
you want a
if
motion?
everybody's already read it,
Yeah,
I will entertain a motion. at
yeah,
time.
approve the release of 21 sets of closed session minutes as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Baloo, seconded by Councilmember Bill Taylor. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Okay,
yeah.
and that's all we have for tonight. Meeting adjourned at 8:26 PM.